Hey fanatics, this is Kaiser Brown here coming from the editing room to tell you what's going on with this episode. Me and my guest Alyssa Vessell are discussing shoujo anime and manga over a Zoom call, so if the audio sounds a bit weird, that's why. Now for the show notes. Next week...
Ouch. Hang nabbit. Wowsy. Lady Lorna warned me it could be a pain traveling from the AI world to the fleshbag hackscape they call real life.
I'm sorry? Who are you?
The name's Peter, and I'm one of Lady Lorna's irreplaceable assistants.
Lady Lorna.
Irreplaceable.
Assistant? Wait, don't assistants usually knock before entering the room?
Not according to Lady Lorna. In order to be successful, you've got to make room, because not everyone is gonna give it to you.
Can't argue with that logic.
No, you really can't.
Doesn't matter. What are you doing here?
Oh, I almost forgot. I'm here to bring gifts. Here you go. Here you go. And here you go.
These are some very beautiful crystals. But what are they for?
They are used to grant any wish imaginable, but only once. Lady Lorna found them during her last AI excursion.
Oh, so she's an archaeologist?
Yes, and a doctor, and a lawyer, and a fisherman, astronaut, chef, baker, teacher, model, graphic designer.
Am I the only one
artist,
thinking something
general,
glitchy is
police
going on
officer,
here?
detective,
No,
scream
something's
queen,
definitely
nurse,
off about
actress,
this Peter
voice
character.
actress, massive
And I have some
artist,
suspicions about
CEO,
Lady Lorna,
animator,
too.
superhero,
She was just
personal
too
trainer,
stylish.
etc.,
I mean,
etc.
the only person who
Just
should be
like a
that
Barbie
stylish
doll.
is me.
I agree.
Besides, we have to finish editing the shoujo episode for Friday. I wish I had magical boy shoujo powers in order to get all this work done.
What's that sound?
It's my crystal. It's glowing.
And it's turning into
Wowsy.
A magic wand.
A magic wand.
a magic wand.
A magic wand? What the?
Lady Lorna was right. I thought she was just pulling my soundboard.
So you thought she was lying.
Calm down, Ava. Lady Lorna never lies.
Yeah, she never lies.
It's Eva.
I wonder if
Huh.
Huh.
Ho.
I can have a magical boy transformation sequence.
Hey ho, gotta go.
Not so fast, PD boy. Kaiser, crystal, transformation power. Turn up. Now that was a Sailor Moon reference. And a little bit lower than I expected. What can I say? The microphone likes to mess up when I get too loud.
Did you just make that phrase up?
Yeah? So what? Oh. Welcome to the I'm a Fan of podcast, where people from different fandoms come together to share why they love what they love.
And sometimes hate what they hate.
I'm your host, Kaiser Brown, and I'm a fan of overly long transformation sequences in anime that are used mostly to sell toys.
And I'm Alyssa, and I'm a fan of the shoujo anime.
We're going to be talking just about that. Are you ready?
Ready when you are.
Okay, let's get started. Okay, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm ready to start recording. You decided that you want to talk about shoujo anime and manga, right?
Yes, this is it. This is that topic for me.
Why is it that topic for you?
Just because I've always been in love with shoujo anime enough to where it has influenced the name of my children.
Really?
Yes, both of my kids are named after anime characters.
OMG, I didn't know that. That's so sweet.
Yeah, they're both on my list, so we're gonna get to it for sure.
Before we get into what shoujo is, let's share our stories of how we got into shoujo.
Okay. So for me, I started out with watching anime late nights, Cartoon Network, Toonami, and also on Fox. Mainly the late nights started out with like the Shonen, Inuyasha, One Piece, Naruto. And at the very end, you may get your cutesy, more of your shoujo-esque anime. Like that's when you may get Sailor Moon on Fox. Or you may see like a trailer or something for a cutesier anime coming out on Toonami soon.
So, what was your favorite shoujo anime growing up?
Always Sailor Moon. Always.
Why Sailor Moon? What about Sailor Moon sticks out to you that made it just like really have such a huge effect on your life?
So when I was growing up, which is your early 2000s, you had YouTube, Vivo, and a couple anime sites. This was when anime was still real underground. And for Sailor Moon, you could find every single episode on YouTube. Whether it was in 3 parts or whatever, they had
Yeah.
it. I was thinking, You found the movies and everything. So I could binge watch all day at school when we're not actually doing work.
Yeah.
I could binge watch. I can binge watch on my phone. I could binge watch at home. I used to hook my laptop up to my TV so that I could see it on a big screen bigger than just a 14-inch laptop.
Yeah.
But it was always there. You had fight scenes. You had bromance when you got to like the ending when the girls are really boys are really girls, something like that.
Yeah.
You had everything. It was like the epitome at that time for shoujo anime.
I remember because you saying YouTube brought me back to the early days of YouTube because thinking about YouTube now versus YouTube then, you could literally watch anything on YouTube back then. Like they were literally split into different parts. I found so many movies and TV shows off of YouTube that you couldn't watch anymore now.
Everything was on YouTube.
Yes, I would go watch like a lot of Disney shows when I was younger. I would watch Sailor Moon too because I remember the old Deke dub and the CWI dubs because those were two different dubs. So the first two seasons of Sailor Moon were dubbed by a different company than the third and fourth season. The fifth season didn't get dubbed until they brought it over with Viz Media. And so they would post all the episodes on YouTube. And that's how I really rediscovered Sailor Moon because I forgot all about Sailor Moon until I was watching a YouTube video one day of this guy. I used to watch a whole bunch of videos where people will play video games or whatever. But this guy, he said the name Sailor Moon, and the name clicked in my head for some reason. I'm like, Sailor Moon, why does that sound so familiar? And so I went on Wikipedia and I searched what it was, and I saw this girl with the two pigtails, like the two, what did he call her? Meatballs?
Meatball head.
Meatballs. Yeah, meatball head. And so she had the two meatballs in her head, and then all of a sudden, I had these flashbacks to like the transformation sequences. I'm like, this seems familiar. So I started reading on it. And then I went on YouTube. I was like, Sailor Moon transformation sequences. I don't know why I want to search that up, but I searched it up. And then I watched the transformations and I'm like, I know what this is. I remember the show. And then it all just awakened to me because when Sailor Moon was on TV, mostly when I was specifically watching it, I was like 3 or 4 years old, going to daycare during the summers or whatever. And so it'll be on really early in the morning. And then I couldn't like really remember the show, but then all of a sudden I'm watching it on YouTube again, then hearing the song "Fighting the Evil by the Moonlight" of the original '90s Sailor Moon English opening, and it just that really opened my world up because I already knew about shoujo because I told you yesterday that you introduced me into the demographic of shoujo when we were in elementary school, but I really delved into it with Sailor Moon. And so that really did take an effect on my life, and it really affects my taste on anime because I feel like the 3 anime that I watched when I was a kid, like a little child that I could always remember seeing on TV were Pokemon, Sailor Moon, and Dragon Ball Z.
Hey, see, mine was Inuyasha, Full Metal Alchemist, and Sailor Moon, just because I always stayed on Cartoon Network. I think like even my MySpace and Bebo names had something to do with Kagome every single time.
Dragon Ball Z for me because every day after like daycare, it would come on every day after Ed and Eddie.
You
And I
are
would
bringing
watch
back core memories.
it. Yes, I can remember stuff now, like stuff from the past. Once I remember it, it's always there. What we should talk about now is for the viewers that don't know, what is shoujo? Alyssa, can you tell us what shoujo is?
So, in my opinion, shoujo anime is anime and manga that is geared towards a demographic somewhere around that preteen, 12, 13 years old into your early 20s. This is where you get most of your cutesy, slice of life, even some fantasy shows too.
In the demographic market for shoujo is usually between 8 and 20. And usually people I find with shoujos usually think they're like slice of life dramas or always have a female main character. When people think shoujo, I find that people usually think romance, right? So I think of shows like From Me to You, which is a show that's like available on anything you can find. They just released live action drama on Netflix for that. And that's a really good
Of
show.
course, I don't pay, and of course, I don't pay for Netflix right now. I pay for everything else but Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can understand seeing Netflix, they tripping. They've been tripping for a while now. But yeah, so like shows like that, just watching all those watching all those things, and people usually think that shoujos are romance, but not all shoujos are focused on romance. A lot of shoujos are focused on action, drama, mystery, any genre you can think of. There's a shoujo for it. That's why we call the different demographics, because while shoujo is aimed at a female audience, shoujo is not a genre. Shoujo can be anything. It can be in any genre. And that's what people usually get confused with when they think of shoujo and shonen. Because when people think shonen, they usually think like action shows like Naruto, My Hero Academia, Dragon Ball Z. And they
Right.
don't think about how other shows, was it Yona, Princess of the Dawn? That is also a shoujo, right? And that has
Right.
action and drama and things like that. And it doesn't always focus on romance, even though that can be a main qualifier within the shoujo demographic. So there are usually three things in the shoujo demographic.
Shout out to Colleen's Manga Rex for the info. I watch her YouTube channel when I'm surfing the interwebs to upgrade my software. The CIA won't be able to deny me now.
It makes it a shoujo, right? So you have the eyes, the paneling, and the story focus. So shoujo eyes are like very glassy and full of texture, and they're really focused on emotions, right? They
Right.
are very detailed compared to shonen eyes, which aren't always as detailed. Sometimes in shonen, you will see detailed eyes here and there if you get close-ups, right? But for the most part, their eyes aren't as glassy. They usually have one or two reflectors within their eyes. But shoujo eyes really are the main staple for the demographic. If you look at clamp manga like Card Captor Sakura versus Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicles, while they're both made by the same mangakas, Card Captor Sakura is shoujo, while Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicles is I think is a shonen. And you can tell by looking at the eyes that they are, since they aren't the same, they are for different demographics, even though they do share like the
Right.
same characters and elements within the genres. Then for the panels for shoujo, especially earlier way back in the day, where like the 60s or the 70s, the panels in shoujo were really the thing besides the eyes that really let you know that it was a shoujo, because panels in shoujo works were overlapping and they were a bit more creative. While when you looked at shonen and stuff at the time, their panels were often just square boxes. They didn't really do anything to push the design of paneling in those different demographics. But with shoujo, you have panels that were a bit more atmospheric, and they usually relied on more nature too. And a lot of old shoujo manga specifically, you could see like panels being made out of flowers or trees, and how you could see how one panel would go into another panel.
Yeah, I think that's like my favorite kind of influence that you see now
Mhm.
in all genres of manga, as well as even going into like webtoons and stuff.
Yeah.
Because you can read Demon Slayer and finally see some panels going over for some fight scene taking up 2 and 3 whole pages just for that epic finish. Or even in some webtoons like Lore Olympus or The Remarried Empress, those they give you such detailed transition scenes with the feathers and the flowers and the garden, stuff like that.
Especially now you're seeing how they take experimental panel design, and you can see how they take those panels and put them into anime now too. Seeing how they adapt those fight scenes, how they adapt like those scenarios, and how sometimes in certain anime you can see they use paneling to their advantage. I think I see some anime that actually take the panel designs, include them in the anime, and then maybe break the panels. You know what I'm talking about? Does that make sense?
I get exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and so I like how that design is truly influencing all of manga. I think of like how American comics have been doing that for a while now too. I read a lot of X-Men outside of, because I don't read that much manga. I usually focus more on the anime, but since we
Same.
were talking about like shoujo and stuff, I read like a lot of manga, like too much to where I need a break from it. But noticing how older manga is specifically how it correlates to American comic books, and how older American comic books, like say X-Men and stuff, use those paneling designs, and how they influence Japanese storytelling, how Japanese storytelling influence American storytelling. And speaking of storytelling, what about the story focus? The story focus of shoujo usually focuses on like strong emotions, goals, attractions, and connections, right? The
Right.
romance, the characters, and the stories are all usually equal in focus. That's not always the same for a shonen. I think of how shoujo and shoujo, because I'm thinking of rom-coms, right? In shoujo
Mhm.
rom-coms, they focus on a comedy, but even then, they still have like serious moments that you can like really get into, that are really like dramatic and such. For shonen, when they usually do romance, it's usually mostly just rom-coms. And so they focus
Um,
more on the comedy than they do on the romance. And the same thing goes for shoujo, focusing more because obviously it's aimed at women and young women, right? It focuses more on female characters, but it also equally develops its male characters more than shonen does, because shonen usually focuses on the male characters and doesn't always develop their female characters. They usually sideline those characters for the most part. Again, thinking like Dragon Ball Z or Naruto, My Hero Academia. Those are all like really big examples of shonen anime and manga, just like taking their female characters and then shoving them to the side. Do you agree with that? I'm wondering, what do you feel about like the difference between shoujo and shonen when it comes to focusing on like the male and female point of view?
Yeah, I definitely agree. In your later years of shonen, that's definitely early 2000s going into the 2010s. But now that we're going into like the 2020s, they're getting a little better at giving us more, the background stories for everybody. So I'll go back to Demon Slayer because I'm in the middle like of the simulcast. I'm on top of it. Every Sunday I'm on it. And you get a different storyline almost every single episode, whether it is the demon's point of view, their backstory as for how they became a demon, the Hashira's point of view, or even a memory from or what are we in, like the upper five right now, upper six, or even from one of them. Now that's something you don't get much of in older shonen.
Mhm.
Let's say we can go for Inuyasha. That's 2000s. We don't have 20 episodes of a background on Naraku, but for Demon Slayer, they gave almost the whole second movie to the demons.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I also think of the anime Black Clover. You ever seen Black Clover?
No, I'm real picky when it comes to watch.
Same. That's why I got into Black Clover, because they focus more on like the characters, both male and female. And I haven't watched it in a while, so I can't even remember the characters' names. See, but there's this one female character, I forget her name, but she is one of the most powerful characters in the anime. And what I find in a lot of shonen specifically, especially like the earlier ones, they will take like this female character and they'll be like, oh, she's super powerful. But then like that specific story arc where she has like her small moment to shine, they will take her, sideline her, and then take the boys and make them more powerful than her, or keep her in that same exact power level. Dragon Ball is a big, because this is not a shonen podcast, but I'm about to complain about Dragon Ball for a second, which is why I stopped watching it. It has this problem where they will, not just for female characters, mostly just for female characters, but they do it for a lot of characters that last throughout the whole show. These characters were like once really powerful characters, but then once Goku gets like another transformation, all these other characters are just basically, they have nothing to do.
Yeah, I see that. And that's why I'm so sorry. Like I said, I'm real picky with shonen. I have not picked up Dragon Ball Z. I've tried forever and a day.
Mhm.
I'm really just on the 150s of One Piece. And that's on a whim. I started that during COVID. But
A long way to go still.
it took me like 4 years to even touch Attack on Titan. I think Jared and Markeith and Nick and them just feel like, you have to try it. You have to watch it. Just watch the first episode. And I never watched it until the middle of COVID.
I never got into Attack on Titan. I never even watched the episode because I feel like it's just too tragic for me.
Like, guys, I'm not even gonna lie. It's definitely one of those that I think that everybody should try, but it's not one you should start out with,
No.
because they're either gonna be like, nothing's gonna compare to how perfect Attack on Titan is, or they're gonna be like, I need more of this. I need more of this. And you don't get that hype in every single anime. There are some anime that you just have to enjoy the ride with.
Yeah. It's different anime for different people. And usually, because I'm not a big fan of tragic stories in general, there's this one anime about Studio Ghibli, right? It's called Grave of the Fireflies. Have you ever seen that movie?
No, I don't want to cry.
Yeah,
don't
don't
wanna
watch it if you don't want to
cry.
cry. Because that movie it's one of those movies that after you watch it one time, you don't ever feel like you have to watch it again. That's literally how you describe it. Watch it once and then that's all you need, because it's just too sad. It's too tragic. And of course, it has its moments of happiness, but it's all in despair. Background is in despair because it takes place in Japan during World War II, right? And so their home, like if from two kids, a brother and a sister, and their home gets bombed. And it's real sad.
Oh, see, that's why I don't want to watch it, because I'm one of those people, I cry at the littlest stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So good scary episodes where no one dies, but there's a big fight or whatever, I'm boo-hooing in there. When the movie Weathering with You came out,
Mm.
I was boo-hooing in the movie theater by myself.
I've been meaning to watch Weathering with You. No, have you ever seen Violet Evergarden?
No.
my gosh. Violet Evergarden is so good. That's an anime that made me freaking cry right there because every episode, like, is so emotional. Not in a bad way, mind you. Like, it's just emotional because it focuses, like, really hard on the characters and the things that they go through. And Violet Evergarden, who's the main character, she ends up learning more and more about human emotion, and that show just really started having me crying because it has its first season, and it has a few specials, and then it has 1 or 2 movies, but all that's on Netflix. I watched the whole thing as it was gradually coming out because the show came
Mm.
out, and then the specials came out, and then the movie came out, like, last year or so, and it was so good. Oh, and it's so beautiful because it's about Kyoto Animation, so they do a lot
The
of beautiful.
scenery, it does have good scenery in it. That's my thing. I love
Yes.
when they have like that tit for tat scenery. You can take a picture of the like real world and look at the anime, and it is identical. That is the most gorgeous stuff that I love. That's one thing that keeps me on anime. They all when it comes to that scenery. Okay, you're giving me like such a huge list to watch now.
I have a whole bunch of anime, like, just in the back of my head from my watch, like, from because I don't watch anime as much as I used to, and even then, I hardly watched it, but every now and then, I find the ones that really stick out to me, and I watch 'em, 'cause I think
Yeah.
about what's one? Cowboy Bebop. Everybody's seen Cowboy Bebop for the most part. If you haven't watched Cowboy Bebop, go watch that because that's a good show. But Cowboy Bebop, the director who did that did a show called Carol and Tuesday. That show excited me when it came out because one of the main characters is black. She's a black girl. You never really see black people in anime. And there is a duo. Carol is the black girl, and Tuesday is she's white. And so they come together and they form like this musical duo. And the music in that show is just so fun to listen to. The animation is just so beautiful and like it's very unique because it takes place on Mars. If you've ever seen Cowboy Bebop, a lot of that show like takes place on Mars and it's in the same universe technically. And the songs
Yeah.
that they sing on there are like all the songs are actually in English for the most part too, which is really interesting how they did that. And they found people all around the world to audition for the show and to play these different characters and do all those things. And if there's one show that I always recommend to people, besides another show which actually is on this list, we'll get to that.
Mhm.
But Carol and Tuesday is an anime that I tell people to watch. It's just like really good. There's only 25 or 26 episodes.
Okay, good binge watch. Okay.
It's a great show. And then they have like this one, you have the Disney Circle of Friends, how they did like the Circle of Life and how they did, like, I don't know, you want to build a snowman. They do something like that, like at the end, where it's like this one big musical number where all the characters come together. And a lot of characters in the show are based off real people in real life. So you have a character based off Whitney Houston, another one based off Mariah Carey and
Oh,
Beyonce.
I gotta watch
And taking like
this.
those
Oh my
yes,
god.
it's so good. It's so good. Like the music really is I feel like it's like music that was because they brought people from all around the world to write the music, and the lyrics are sometimes like really I don't wanna say corny, but like on the nose, but the music is still overall just really good. Because the first arc focuses on them coming together, and then they go on this American Idol or The Voice type of show, and then after that, the aftermath focuses on people moving to and from Mars and people being left on Earth, which is continuing to die or whatever. And so the rich are going to Mars while the poor people are staying on Earth. I don't want to get too far into it because it's a really good show and you should watch it one day. And so maybe
Okay.
maybe we should get into our list.
Okay.
So both of us put a list of 5 anime and manga that we want to talk about. And so I'm gonna let you go first. We're gonna go from 5 to 1 on what our picks are. So what's your first pick? What's your number 5?
My number 5 is Kaicho wa Maid-sama.
Mm.
Okay, so it's not a super long anime. I
Mhm.
was reading it when the manga came out, and then a little while longer than the anime comes out. But the style choice that they have really pulls you in.
Mhm.
It is the school kind of schoolgirl slice of life anime, and she is the student body president, but she also works at a maid cafe to make sure that she has money to get by, help with her family, stuff like that. And
Is this the anime with the girl where she's like really strong too?
yeah,
Like, yeah,
yeah.
okay, yeah. Just making sure I was imagining the right one.
Yeah. So that one's my number 5.
Why'd you pick it as your number 5? What stood out about that one?
So I'm really stuck on like my oldies but goodies. I get my favorites and I kind of stick with them. And this one sticks with me just because it gives you such a wholesome look on a strong female lead and a strong male lead that's giving her that opportunity to be soft, but be vulnerable. So this is the best, real generalized way that I can see it. And it gives me just that warm, fuzzy feeling when I go back and watch it over again.
Cool, cool. When I was younger, I watched a little bit of this anime. I watched like the first 2 or 3 episodes, and I never went back to it. I always see it like on Crunchyroll or something, Crunchyroll or Hulu, either one. But they share a lot of anime that's the same. And I remember scrolling through it a few weeks ago. I was like, should I watch this to see if I should include it on my list? But I never went and watched it. But I do know that like it's a really popular shoujo from the time that it was in. And it really does focus it on those themes. It's like really like your classic rom-com in a lot of ways, huh?
Yeah, it is. That is my classic rom-com on my list. That's it.
Mine is also like a manga and anime from that time, but it's one that's actually still going on. My number 5 is Skip Beat. And yes, because the thing about Skip Beat, I want to include like a big list that had a wide variety of genres. And the thing about Skip Beat that stood out to me is it reminds me a lot of shonen in a way because how long this manga has been going on because it only has one anime and that anime is 26 episodes probably and it came out when it first came out. The manga is still going on to this day and it came out in 2001, I believe, something like that.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's not like higher on my list is because I didn't read as much of it or watch as much of it that I wanted to. But basically, it focuses on a 16-year-old girl named Kyoko Megami who discovers that her childhood friend, Shotaro Fuwa, is a jerk that like treats her like a maid. He's like he's awful to her from as far as I read. He's like really awful to her. And she ends up finding out that he talks about her behind her back, like just saying like the nastiest stuff, saying she's useless. He only uses her for the money and for a place to live. He treats her like trash. And she works all these jobs and then has this big apartment taking care of this guy. And she's really supporting him in his dreams. And he just treats her like she's the worst person in the world. And so when she finds out that he really is just using her, she decides to get revenge on him by beating him in show business. So he's like an actor or whatever. And so she decides that she's going to become an actress in order to best him and become a better actor than he is so that he can realize, I don't want to say realize what he missed out on, right? But to prove that she is more than just some maid, right? That she's her own person with her own dreams and her own characteristics. And he just lost out on stuff. And this show is still going on. And the thing about it that I like, it focuses on her goals as a character. Because at first, she really became an actress in order to get revenge on him. But as the show goes on, she constantly has to face new trials and situations, which makes her realize that acting in show business is something that she actually really wanted to do. And so it is really like similar to shonen in that way, where she's facing all these trials and things and having to go against different rivals and having to face a new mountain that was higher than the last mountain that she just climbed. And it really, when I think about like the themes of the show, it focuses a lot on friendship and dreams and self-love and reliance on yourself. And it has romance in there too, but those really are like the main themes that really stood out to this show to me. And I really liked when, because it's iconic. I feel like when characters have this moment of self-realization and then they go and they just cut all their hair off. I just like when characters do that on TV.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've seen it like a couple anyway. You can even say Mulan did it. She had that realization, just had to cut her hair off.
It's always like when you cut your hair off or when you change your style. That's like the classic teen movie trope, right? In a lot of early teen movies, it was like changing your style to like, get the boy or whatever. But as time is going on, it's really more like changing your style because you want to express yourself more and really live your best life. And I feel like Skip Beat as a whole really does take those themes and uses them to its advantage. And I see why it's still going on 21, 22 years later.
Yeah, now see, I'm telling you, this whole podcast is just you giving me more stuff to go back and read.
Yeah. The thing about Skip Beat is you can just pick it up and because it's still going on though. So like when you finish reading one volume, you have 10,000 more to go, which is why I couldn't like read as much as I wanted to. But it's still like really good. It's fun to watch. And I feel like it's more fun to read because the show didn't last that long. But it's a really fun show to watch as well.
Yeah, I need to get back into it because you just gave me so much more life for that. Because I finished it as an anime and just never went back to read the manga. I didn't even know it was still going on.
I didn't know either until I knew about it, and I read a little bit of it beforehand, before doing research in it, like, previously, and I was like, "Wait, this is still going on." I was like, "That's amazing." I just it's That's one thing in a lot of manga and stuff that you don't see in other, like, type of comics, especially in American comics, because we have comic books when you think of DC and Marvel, you have, like, your Wonder Woman comics and things like that, and there are writers that do their long runs, but once a writer is finished with one run, another writer and artist comes in to pick up
Put add
the
on, yeah,
storylines.
like
Yeah.
pick up,
Mhm.
add on to it. Yeah, and I love that about like DC and Marvel universe. That it's a universe. It's not just one specific storyline because you have to pick up from one movie to go to the next one. You have to watch them in this order for everything to fall together. But there are so many anime and manga that are running for decades, and
Yes.
you have some anime that are running for like hundreds and going into the thousands per episodes. And that's the thing that like normal people who watch cartoons don't get when it comes to watching anime. Because this isn't just something that, oh, this anime started this year. No, this anime started before I was born, 1999, and I'm still watching it. It's still going. Young
Yes.
people, it's just shaped grown people, like people who are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s watch this when they were in their teens and early 20s, like the age that we're at, and the way that we go hard for it, they go even harder because they've had it for 3 decades.
That's very true. I think of Pokemon. Think about it, like, Pokemon came out around the time where, like, we were born. It came out, in like, 1997, right? But
Mhm.
the fact that show is, like, still going on, even the fact after, because Pokemon made, like, really big news because Ash Ketchum became, like, the world champion or whatever, right? And his last 11 episodes are about to premiere in the US or whatever, but now they have a whole new Pokemon anime with a whole new cast, and they're still, like, just going on, and just like how a show like Pokemon can still just go on for so long. It's just amazing that you really don't see that in American media when it comes to the same team doing the same storyline for a long time.
Do we even have a cartoon that does that?
Not in SpongeBob.
But sometimes it's kinda like sitcom in my opinion, 'cause
Mhm.
it gives you, like, those major things, but there's nothing real chronological about it. You can skip around with SpongeBob and still get the gist of it. Now, there are some jokes that you have to watch previous episodes to understand if they
Mhm.
ever come back and mention it again, but for, like, anime, they mainly follow a very
The annual technical difficulty.
Put it to the cloud. There we go. I forgot to put it to the cloud. That's why I was doing it. Okay, go ahead.
No, you're good. But like in most anime, you get a vague storyline to where you see the character growth. With SpongeBob and stuff like that, you don't. They're still the same childish SpongeBob and Patrick, bubble blowing, jellyfishing kind of group.
The closest I can think to, like, because I really like a lot of comic books too, to like long run. Every now and then you get a long run in comic books. I think about, because X-Men is just my stuff. X-Men is so good. If you want, especially like in the 80s and the 70s to like the early 90s, but really peak X-Men and like the X-Men comics now, because they're doing like this whole storyline like starting in 2019 with Krakoa, which is like this living mutant island, and the mutants are like at the top of the world and stuff like that. I'm not gonna get on to that. This is not an X-Men podcast on this episode, but like Chris Claremont, he's a famous, iconic comic book writer. He did an X-Men run that was like 17 years long. And so he wrote like the main X-Men title and a lot of the spin-off series for that. And that's like the only one that I can really think. No, because a lot of comics during that time up until the 80s and 90s were when we had like really long comic book runs where writers would like really stick it out. But even still, they would still like eventually leave for a new writer to come in. You know what I mean? You don't really see that
Yeah.
in manga, right? Like this writer that started it is usually the writer that finishes it, unless something tragic happens. Like I think about Berserk, right?
Yeah.
And how that writer, how they died, but their team is continuing on the story for them because they had the outline and they all planned it or whatever. But for the most part, in Japan and those stories, they really do have the same people for the entirety of like their runs, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. I would assume so because they make so much not to say like that it's a money thing, but it's a business, but that they make so much money the way that anime towers over in the animation community altogether. You have people that are even basing regular cartoons like that are animated in America on the anime style and the way that anime and manga run concurrently. Most of the times you're getting book sales, you're getting actual manga sales, and then all of your digital sales, your digital media sales, your actual views and streamings of your anime. I know that they be box officing like millions in Japan alone. Think about the rest of the world.
Yes.
Yeah, when they get accolades, when I say the notoriety that you get for being a mangaka or a manga illustrator, or even just a person that does the storyline, because for most of them have somebody for the storyline and then someone who actually does their illustrations nowadays too,
Yeah.
because you have those storytellers and then the people who visualize it and put it on paper. There's some things to where they already have monuments for certain anime or theme parks for certain anime.
Yes. I think of like Doraemon. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah. How that's really big. That's the anime that's gone on forever because that's starting like what, the 70s? I did research on that because I want to do an episode on Doraemon for this podcast. That anime started in the 70s, went up to 2005, and then the next week they started a new anime, and that anime is still going on today. Plus, they have like tons and tons and tons of movies. A new movie comes out every year since 1973 or 1979, something like that.
Yeah, that's insane. But see, like stuff like that, you don't get that in American animation. You may get a couple movies here or there, they'll come back in a decade for a revival. But the consistency for the storyline, the consistency for the character development, the animation, you don't get that. And that's what anime like does for me. That's what it's always been, the consistency of it all.
They're really consistent and it really works. I think anime is like anime and manga is like in Japan like a form of soft power because it really brings in a lot of revenue and it really does like control how it's used to control how viewers overseas often perceive like Japan, and a lot of people love Japan because they love anime. You know what I mean? Not really knowing what happens in Japan, not really knowing what Japan is like. And so they're like, you know, like the common thing, especially like young adults, the place they want to go, especially if they've seen anime, is Japan because they think Japan is going to be like anime, like you're going to high school, eating lunch on the rooftop of your school or something, stuff like that. And it really does influences how you see Japan overseas too. It's really powerful. I should say that. Like the power of anime is just it's unmatched.
Oh, yeah. I could be having this conversation with a 10-year-old and they still would understand what I'm talking about when it comes to anime. I've had children come up to me because most of my people know that I don't watch reality TV. I am the cartoon's mom, sister, cousin, whatever. If you show me a cartoon, I've more than likely seen it or I know something about it, whether it's cartoon or anime. So yeah, it can bring together. I can talk to a 10-year-old, I can talk to a 30-year-old or a 40-year-old about anime and still find a common ground because it's just that versatile and it's just that widespread.
We're gonna get back to that. So next, I think we should get into like our number fours, right? So,
All right.
so what is your number four?
My number 4 is Lovely Complex.
Oh,
That one, yes. Yeah, I have all of mine are oldies. I'm not even gonna lie. My number 3 is new, but all of my list is all oldies. Lovely Complex got me because of the issues of complexes. It was the first one I was introduced to. Whether it was like a Napoleon complex, a brother complex, a sister complex. That was the one. So it starts out, the main characters are, her name is Risa Koizumi, and her boyfriend or soon to be boyfriend is going to be Otani. And the thing is, they're polar opposites. She's super tall. She's 5'9", 5'8", compared to him being 5'2", even though their names mean the exact opposite. So she's so tall, but her name means Little Spring, and he's so short, but his name means Big Valley, which kind of is their play on words for the complex itself. Because when they're getting at it, when they're going at it, they're always talking about, oh, well, you're such a shorty, or you're just super tall, you're like tall like a giraffe. Yeah, it got me thrown when I first started watching it. And I was super young. I may have been, I don't know, maybe 9 or 10 when I was watching this. And again, it's one of those schoolgirl, school life, slice of life anime. It gives you your character development, but it also gives you the insight of the mind of a 15-year-old going through middle school and high school and being in love and
Yeah.
having all of your normal everyday life things to where she doesn't feel like she's pretty enough. She doesn't feel like she's adequate. She doesn't feel like she's feminine because she's so tall. He has that, what do you call it? He has that inner conflict with himself with being so short and
It's
not
like a
feeling.
short man complex.
Yeah, he has that short man Napoleon complex. He doesn't feel adequate enough to be like, oh, this is my girlfriend, or super confident because she towers over him. But all in all, it's a super cute, come together school life. They do the normal school things. You have your gym class episodes, you have your trip to Hokkaido or Okinawa episode. They do the little horror walk through the forest, and they have the friends that are dressed up as ghosts and stuff. They do the whole 9 yards.
Yes.
And it gives much heartthrob for me.
Yeah. No, because I think your number 4 and my number 4, they're not the same, but they have like really similar themes because mine's is Kimi ni Todoke from Me to You. And
Okay.
yes, and you can tell like from both of those shows, they have like similar themes, especially because this
Mhm.
one focuses on like Sawako Kuronuma, who's dubbed Sadako by her classmates. And that's like named after like this very famous Japanese horror franchise and the character of that franchise. And because she often looks like this scary character from these horror movies, she's often misunderstood by her classmates because of her appearance. And she has trouble making friends. But one of the first students that's like really nice to her is Shota. He's the love interest. Japanese names are so hard to pronounce. But Shota Kazehaya. And like when he talks to her, that's when her whole world changes. And so this one focuses on the relationship between the two, but also a lot on like her friendship with these two other girls that she makes friends with, and really just like her becoming more popular and making friends, but learning more about her self worth and her self value. And a lot of the other characters have to deal with learning how to love themselves and how to like really express their love to others. And that's probably one of the most relatable anime I've watched. Seeing characters like this, especially when you go back to your younger years, when you're like at your most insecure, you really don't know anything and you really care about how other people see and view you. This show really does hit that sweet spot. It has a lot of sweet moments in it. One of the moments I think about is my favorite scene in the series where the character, her name is Chizu, she confesses her feelings to her best friend's brother. His name is Toru because her best friend, his name is Ryu, right? And
Mhm.
so Ryu has a crush on Chizu, but she doesn't know that he has feelings for her. But Chizu, of course, has feelings for his older brother. And her just confessing her feelings to him and just seeing that bittersweet moment where they're not gonna end up together, but she still feels relief over being able to express her feelings, and he feels relief that she's able to open up to him because he views her as his little sister. That show is, like, full of those type of moments, just, like, those heartwarming, wholesome moments. It's, like, things that I hear, like, the main character say about herself when she felt like she wasn't good enough, when she felt like she didn't deserve friends, or when she's, like, really naive in a lot of situations, really reminds me of just, like, myself, especially in my younger years, but still, like, to this day, me being in my early 20s, like, a lot of things I can just, like, really resonate with in this anime.
Yeah. I wish that I had a high school experience that even rivaled some of these 12 episode animes.
Right?
Where I feel like I just did like cheer band school home, cheer band school home.
It's true, that's true. Mine was just like school, home, school, home, school, home. Because when I wasn't in school, I hardly talked to school too. Because we went to school, we were in like the same classes for like 13 years straight, kindergarten up to 12th grade. And so I was always
Yeah.
really quiet. And I talked more and more as I got older. But for the most part, just like seeing like a character like this, also another anime, this isn't like a shoujo, but Komi Can't Communicate, which is another anime about this quiet girl who's like learning how to make friends. Anime like that, like really just I really relate to those type of anime, especially their thoughts and stuff. I'm like, it just revealed my thoughts, especially because I've been on like this journey to loving myself and being like more in tune with myself, especially like this past year. Watching anime like this now compared to when I watched them in like the past, my thought process and how that changed is really interesting. It's a really interesting adventure to go on.
Oh, I love that for you. I feel like I'm always finding myself. Like I've lost myself a couple different times, but I'm
Mhm.
constantly finding myself constantly trying to reimagine what I can be and look for that new me. So I love this for you because, yeah, we've done 13 years in the same classroom. And I think the only time we've ever had like deep conversations or wide conversations like this is when we're talking about anime.
Yeah, true. That's very true.
Yeah.
But it's the thing about anime because we were talking about how long running it is. It's like this thing because when you do go back to watch it, especially when you're in a different thought process, a different age range than you were when you first were introduced to these shows, going back and watching these things like really reveals a lot about yourself that you probably didn't even realize that you might have been through or thought about when you're at a younger age, and then comparing that to how you are now in your adult years or your young adult years, that really does. It's like a mirror to you in a few ways, like seeing stuff that you enjoyed about these shows and then realizing stuff that you might not enjoy as much anymore, or seeing things that you might appreciate more now than you did back then. It actually like watching these shows, especially going back, shows like this growth process that we as individuals go through in our real life. And then when we return to these things, especially for like nostalgia, we really do see like changes in our perspectives of the world and changes in our perspectives of ourselves and other individuals. And watching the anime, like From Me to You, really did change my perspective now, especially compared to when I was like 15 when I first watched it.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So now it's time for our number threes. What you pick for your number three, Alyssa?
My number 3 is Fruits Basket.
Oh my gosh. I love Fruit Basket so much.
Yes, when I say I cry every single time.
Yes.
The old one, the new one, the movie, whatever, I'm going to boo-hoo. So Fruits Basket took my heart originally in, I want to say it was like 2013. I was a little older when I first watched Fruits Basket. I was definitely a teenager. And I think like episode 3 caught me by surprise. And I never thought that I'd see kind of like that kind of situation in an anime. So in episode 3, that's the one where she decides that she's not going to impose on the Soma boys anymore in their home and go home to her actual relatives, even though they don't really like her because she's the daughter of the delinquent child. And at the end of episode 3, when the boys come and get her, Yuki just says, why don't you just come? Like she's crying to her grandpa about not wanting to leave them. She wants to be there and make dinner with Kyoya. And she wants to sit there and chill with Shigure while he's working on his transcripts or whatever. And they basically like bust the door open and it's real quiet. And then all you hear is Yuki say, why don't you just come home? And he has his arms open and it is just so heart-wrenching. And when they reanimated into the revival, it was phenomenal because I saw it as a preteen and now I see it as somebody who has gone through either being homeless, being kicked out of my home, having to get my own apartment, the whole 9 yards. It's such love when a friend, not even somebody to be in a romantic relationship, but when a friend gives you that kind of freedom to love and to love you and to want you there.
That's so beautiful because Fruits Basket is like that is like a top tier shoujo anime for me. And I did not put it on my list specifically because I don't know why, but I felt like you were probably putting it on your list because
As
that
much as I talked about it in
Mhm.
high school, I knew it had to have been like, it is still it's my top 3 and
Yes.
always will be.
Yes, it's so good. Let's give a little summary about what Fruits Basket is about too, so people can know. Because Fruits Basket, if there's one or two anime that we talk about, this is like one of the anime that I feel everyone should just go and watch. It's just that good.
Definitely, yeah, because it's not just strictly romance. You do have your little tendrils of romance, whether it's between the family or with your main characters. But Fruits Baskets is about the main character, Toru Honda. She is, I can't tell you the age. They're in high school. They're maybe like 15 or 16
Yeah, I
years
think
old.
she's like 16.
Yeah, if that. She's 16 and she was the only child of her mother and her father. Her father died young and her mother was a delinquent and she actually died in like a freak car accident going to an interview, I think. So she was staying near this cliff or under this cliff in the woods in a tent after her mom had died and she had been there for a while. And her not roommates, Jesus, some of her classmates, which are the Soma boys, the Soma family is known for their beauty, They're always so standoffish. And one of them is delinquent, and the other one is like your student body president. And they seem like total opposites, and they're cousins. And they stay with one of their other relatives, their uncle. But it is a supernatural kind of fantasy shoujo anime. And the Soma family has a generational curse where the family members, doesn't matter what order you're in or, how far down the family tree you are, but more than likely they're cursed with the Chinese zodiac. And the Chinese zodiac is only 12 of them, but in the story for the Chinese zodiac, there's a 13th, and that is the cat. And he was left out. So that's the one that has the curse. And the anime time kind of just goes through them, her going back to her family, them saying, oh, come back to us. We don't mind. They have real love for her. And she goes through and meets all 12 of the zodiac. They have their antagonist, who is the one that plays God in the family.
Yeah.
And they even give you some gender bent situations, some necessarily incest or anything. You get a little bit of that in there when you get into the newer season of it.
Yeah.
But it just has that real, I don't want to keep saying wholesome, but she is your ditzy, green to everything. And it's not purposeful. She has her insight here and there, but she's just that all around sweetheart.
Yeah.
And she's green and blonde to some stuff.
Yeah, Toru is very, like, her character is very wholesome. She's one of the sweetest anime characters that you will meet because whenever she does anything, she does it from her heart. She does it from a place of just goodness and just purity. And even if there are times where she makes a decision that may not be from the area, she's always the type of person who goes and tries to fix her mistakes. And it's just that anime, both of them, because I've seen both, because I got into Fruits Basket my senior year of high school, senior junior year. It was around the time the new one's was about to come out, so I decided to watch the original. And both of them are really good, but the difference between the two is the original one is way more comedic, while the newer one has a lot more drama in it because it goes throughout the whole story and it focuses on more on the dramatic elements. And let me tell you, when that show, especially the newer seasons, when it will make you cry after every single episode, it will really make you cry every
Single one. And the
episode.
movie came out, the prequel with the mom and dad story. Bruh, as a mother, it gave what it was supposed to give. Because I have two little babies. And it definitely gave postpartum depression. It entitled everything, losing a partner, whether you felt like you lost a partner in a relationship altogether, or if they passed away or they died. It gave you the heart, like it pulled your heartstrings. I was booing in there.
Dang. Just like the Fruits Basket in general is one that everybody should watch. And there's another thing about the show is it whenever you hug somebody of a different gender, they turn into the zodiac animal? Or is it when you touch them? It's
I
hug?
think it's a hug.
Yeah. And so there are a lot of situations where she because while it's like an extended cast, you have the main four, it's Toru and the three guys that she lives with, right? And their family. And there are a lot of comedic situations where she ends up falling on one of them or they hug by mistake and then they end up turning into their zodiac animals. Oh, who's your favorite character in Fruits Basket?
Hatsuharu, he's the one that
Really?
turns into the cow.
Uh-huh.
So his hairline actually, half of it's white, and I think the top half is white and the bottom half is black. And in the original episode, when the teacher was asking him about his hair, his thing is he's also like bipolar.
Yeah.
It kind of goes with the hair. So he's rude at some point, and at other points he's real docile and sweet. And when one of the teachers asked him about his hair, he was like, "Oh, you want me to prove it?" And that was like, it stuck with me. And then Hatsuharu, this is the thing, it's going to go into my number 2, but Hatsuharu and Momiji are just like, perfect together.
I
And
love
those-
Momiji so much. I'm sorry, I got excited because Momiji was like my favorite Fruits Basket character. He's so cute. He reminds I have like this thing for like the small blonde characters. You know, that's like a trope in anime, like the small kitty like looking blonde characters. They're just so cute and so innocent. I got so upset when Momiji had a growth spurt. I got so upset.
It was so cute though. My favorite part is when they're going to the hot springs and Momiji singing his song. Like, I know it's the sweetest thing in the world. Okay. I'm not gonna think of it. It's adorable. Like that little trope with the cute little blonde one and the tall, dark,
Yes.
brooding one is my thing.
Yes, and Momiji's so cute, and it's funny because the thing that makes Momiji like just even cuter because it's an original anime. Because I watched like a lot of dubs. That's how, especially with Fruits Basket, because they brought like a lot of original cast back from the original dub. I was like, I have to watch the dub because that's how I was introduced to that show. But Momiji has a different voice actress, I think, voice actress. And the difference is that like he has like an accent. I forget what he's like German or something. And so she gives him like this like really cute German accent. He just reminds me of somebody's little brother or something. And I'm like, Momiji is just like my favorite character. He's the Year of the Rabbit. And then I found out like 1999 was like the Year of the Rabbit. This is meant to be. This is meant to be. He's meant to be my favorite character. He's such an awesome character. And Toru's two best friends too are like some of the best friends you could have in like a TV show, if I'm being honest.
They rode for her every single time, whether it was keeping the guys away from her when she was in the hospital, whether it was them in their sleepover night, where when her best friend was like in love with somebody else and just trying to get her through those emotions. They gave her that freedom to actually have her girly moments and it not always be about her and the other guys.
Yes, and they have their own episodes a few times too. I forgot what the goth girl, I forget what her name was, but there was this one episode. It was in the original anime and in the newer one where like the popular girls that were big fans of what's the guy's name?
Yuki.
Yuki. They were because he had a fan club. Yuki had a fan club, and so the girls were like really trying to figure out like. As far as I can remember, like Toru and her friends or whatever. And so they tried to be friends with the gothic scary girl. And then so because she's that way, and then her brother's also that way, and she's psychic, right? And so
Yeah.
when they come to her house, they end up like getting scared. Like all these horror movie tropes end up happening. They end up running away, and it's just so hilarious. And it's just like Fruits Basket. The thing about Fruits Basket is it always has these moments of hilarity, but then it always has these moments of drama too. Because I look at the characters and stuff. You have one moment where you laugh, but then all of a sudden you feel like one moment where Omiji, I'm gonna give like this like small little spoiler. His spoiler with him and his like mom and how she didn't want him, right? And she ends up like losing her memories about him or whatever. Is that correct? Or did she? I'm trying to
I think
remember.
did she go crazy?
I don't know. I don't
I
remember.
feel like she went crazy
Yeah,
because she didn't want him because he turned into an animal.
yeah, she went crazy. I think she lost her memories, and then the dad doesn't. She doesn't know that he's her child. Is what we should say.
Yeah.
Yeah, she forgot because she went that crazy. Yeah. Because she went to ask the head of the family to like remove her memories, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's what it is. You got it.
Yeah, and that's Fruits Basket is just so good. It's just really that good. And especially it was great that we had the chance to finally get the whole story animated with the most recent anime adaptation. It was
Yes, I loved it. The movie gave what it was supposed to. It tied everything together because you finally got that prequel story that you were looking for, the dad and the mom and how Toru became the way that she is.
Toru. I love Toru so much. She's one of my top 5 anime protagonists. But yeah, you guys watch Fruits Basket. That's just watch it, read it however you can get your hands on the anime or the manga, whichever one you want to read, because both are really excellent. Go ahead and do it because it's just so good.
Yes, it's a must read. It's a must watch.
Yes. So my number 3 is one that this one messed me up, I should say, because I read it and this was at the point where I was like really crunching, trying to get in as much manga as I could for this episode. And I finished it like last week, the day before we were going to record the first time. And it's called Rig Beta. It's a manga by Clamp. Clamp are the same people that made Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicles, Cardcaptor Sakura X. And it's really interesting, okay? So a little backstory on Clamp is that they're an all-female Japanese manga artist group. They all come together for all these stories. They all do the art, the writing, and everything. And they've been doing stories since 1989, like their first official story. And this is the first official published full manga that they ever did. And when I read it, really, it changed my perspective on their work and seeing how far they've come from that point in their careers to where they are now, because it's very tragic. It will tear you to pieces. So basically, it's about this god of thunder named Tashikutin, who rebels against the heavenly emperor to become like the new king of heaven. But it's prophesized one day that his role will be usurped when the 6 stars unite and come together to defy him. And so this man named Yasha, he's the leader of the Yasha clan. He awakens the god of war called Ushura, who is at this point is born as a little baby and then eventually becomes a little child. And the two go on an adventure to find the 6 stars. And so basically it's them going on a run from the king of heaven who's trying to kill Ashura, while also finding these 6 stars so they can defeat him. And it starts off very tragic because I'm going to give a few spoilers so people know what they're getting into. Yasha, once he awakens Asura, his whole clan, because he awoken Ashura, the Heavenly King goes and kills his whole clan. And despite knowing Ashura's destiny, he still takes Ashura under his wing so they can gather the 6 stars so that they can defeat the king. So all these tragic happenings can stop. And how the story develops eventually, because it's like tragic. Every person that they come across ends up dying in some way, whether they're killing themselves, or they ended up being killed. And like the thing about the story is the story of this manga is a bit mixed, but the characters are all like really well developed. And so you get to know a character, and then a lot of times, not all the characters die, but quite a few of them like die, especially if they're like one-off characters. They come in, join a group, save the group, and then they kill themselves once the group leaves or something in order to help Ashura, in order to not give away like where they're going or whatever. And by the time the 6 stars come together, because they all do come together by the end of the manga, it all goes to the fan. That's all I'm gonna say. Because I just
You got me in. You got me in it.
let me tell you, this is not Clamp's best manga. Like, you have Card Captor Sakura, you have Tsubasa, like I was saying earlier, but this is their first manga, and seeing where they went from then to how they are now, and seeing, because a lot of their manga and stuff does focus on like tragedy, but then there's a lot of other ones that focus on comedy and friendship and family. This focuses on all of that, plus most of it is like tragedy. And then once the end comes, you're just like, you get angry. You get angry is what I'm gonna say. It goes there. And it made me wonder when I was reading it why I read it in the first place.
Yeah, I gotta
But
get on. Oh,
yeah, but I had to put it on my list because it added a bit of variety to it. And I didn't read as much Clamp manga as I wanted to because I love Clamp. I love Card Captor Sakura. Oh my gosh. But just really like getting into it is just wow. The twists and the turns, and certain characters do things that you wouldn't expect. But then when you go back and you read it and you're like, wait, they were planning this all along. They were doing this, they were doing that. I just can't spoil it. Just read it and then be ready to cry right after you finish it.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm warned. I've been warned. Okay.
Oof. Yeah. Let me take a second because I don't want to spoil it, but I want to say what happens too. Let's just go to like our number twos because I'm this close to just saying what happened.
Okay. So my number two, like I said, it piggybacks off of off of Fruits Baskets, and this is actually where I get my son's name from, is Oran High School Host Club. So I'm stuck. I'm so stuck in the oldies. I am a classic shoujo lover, but Oran High School Host Club only runs for 12 episodes.
Mhm.
It focuses on Haruhi Fujioka, and she is a scholarship student at Oran High School Academy. And it is a high school or an academy for the rich, the famous, the lavish, those who live a life of luxury. And I'll just give y'all a little backstory on it. The whole thing is she is paying off a debt. She was looking for somewhere quiet to study. And she went to a music room. I believe it was music room number 3. And that's where she met the hosts. And when she was a little flustered, she knocked over a vase. And the vase cost millions, and they're making her work as like their lackey or their errand boy for the host club. And the whole first episode is them figuring it out. I'm not gonna spoil it for everybody, but them figuring it out. And that's when they kind of, I'm gonna make her a host, and they'll go from there. But to piggyback off of like my love from Fruits Basket, there is the Funny Senpai and Mori Senpai. And that is, your little short blonde.
Yeah.
Mori is your tall, dark, and broody. Other character that's super quiet that just takes care of your cute little blonde. And that's where I get my baby's name from. And his name is Mori. And it goes along with my number 1 and my other child's name. But yeah, I love me some Mori. I don't know why. He's a side character. You did not get much background story with it being, 6 hosts. And then there's also Haruhi. Is it 6? Let me see. There's Tamaki, Kyoya, Hikaru, Kaoru, Honey, and Mori. Yeah, 6 hosts. And then there's Haruhi too, a favorite.
This show is like really interesting because when I think anime, when you think like classic anime tropes, this is a show that I really think of. This is like one of those anime, especially when you're younger, you like watching it and then somebody walking into your room and they're like, what is this? And you're like, it's anime. It's just anime. You have to go along with it.
This was the anime I used to introduce you. I introduced Cinnamon to this anime. I introduced Berkwanzia to this anime. Everybody, this was it. On High School Host Club. It was very short, very sweet. It was straight and to the point. It gave you that school life that I was looking for, but it also gave you like your tropes. You had your short blonde, tall, dark, and broody. You have your babyfied prince. That is Tamaki, and he loves to do this mama and daddy thing with Kyoya, and he'll be yelling mama, and Kyoya's like, who is mama? Since we're going through like the hierarchy of the host, and that's be him next. And he would even act like he was her daddy. And even when he met her real father, he was just still fawning all over her. And it gave, I don't know, it gave like your big brother in high school or your secret admirer, your secret crush who's still your friend and still there for you.
The twins too. The twins, that's a classic trope too. Like the two incestuous kind of twins. They're not incestuous, but they like use it to their advantage is what I'm gonna say.
Always.
They,
And the twins are like a selling point for them because they gave that wow factor to add on to everybody else in the host club. Because you have your points. You have your calculating nerd, who's using his brains for power. You have your cute little baby bunny that's going to be Honey. And then you have Mori, who is your real big, strong, quiet, but handsome other person. And then you have these two real childish, brotherly love that kind of goes borderline incestuous.
Yes. And then all in the middle, you just have this girl who just has to deal with all this randomness, and because all the characters, of course, she's the main character, but she's also your point of view character. She's the one where like she's asking all the questions because everybody around her is just like eccentric and just over the top. You have to have this one character that keeps everything balanced.
Yeah, she's your homebody. She's your voice of reason in the club. She gives the ladies who they're hosting, she gives them that. What was it? She always talked about her family, like her mom and things that her mom taught her and how she was able to have an appreciation for the arts or for the weather or for cooking. She gave you that homely, things that still have values other than the money to them.
Yeah, I don't want to say it because it makes it sound boring or anything. Because she's not like a really boring character. She's actually like really funny. Because she's also, as far as I remember, because it's been a while since I've seen it, she's like really sarcastic and just like blunt.
Super satirical.
Yeah.
She didn't feed into the bull with them. Yeah. She kept it real, but always kept, I don't know, I guess you could say she kept it cute too. Like, you never knew the difference between the two unless you were them who knew that she was acting funny, but everybody else thought that was her normal thing.
That's a classic. That's one of just like the real classics in anime. It's one of those anime that like when you get into shoujo, that's usually one of those shoujo anime that everybody watches for the first time. You know what I mean? Especially when it comes to the romance or the comedy. This is the one that people need to go to.
That and the opening theme song is freaking iconic. Number one is roses. It's all roses. And it just starts out with that drum. And it's like, you just watch out to it every single episode. That is not an opening intro that you skip.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I feel like depending on who you are, this is like either your first anime or this is like one of those beginner animes that you like really, that brings you into the big anime tropes, especially of the tropes that were like during that time.
Yeah.
And you can see how a lot of anime and manga got inspiration from this one too, especially like the modern ones too, because it's also a harem too. It's like a harem in its own way, because the character she's gonna end up with, right? But like
always,
but like it's just like this harem of boys just like surrounding her. In your head, you can pick which one you want to end up together.
In the 12 episodes, they give everybody that episode to get to know her.
Yes,
That's
do.
what I love. They give everybody that chance to have that personal interaction. So these are your main two characters for this episode. Or it's going to be her and Tamaki in the end. In the end of this episode, because they're the main two characters, they're going to give you all the feels. But the whole issue is, can you figure out for this episode which one is which? And they're added. They're having it added. So I love that it doesn't just focus on the romance part. It actually gives you your school situation, and they even bring in like side characters and give background on them for where they came from, what the issue is, the whole 9 yards in 24 minutes.
Yeah, the fact that they can do all that in a 12 episode anime too, and they can do all that development with such a huge diverse cast and personalities is like really amazing, because they're anime with way less amount of characters that can't really give that much character development. That's like the thing about shoujo specifically. Shoujo as a demographic, for the most part, when you get a good shoujo, you get like a really good shoujo.
Oh, honorable mention. I don't even know if it's shoujo, but I'm going to say it is because of the artwork and everything. And even to piggyback off of something, you had one anime where, what was it, Tuesday and something? I don't know the girl's
Carol
name.
and Tuesday?
Yeah, Carol and Tuesday, where you were like, the music for it really gave a little more into the purpose of that anime, since they did so much with it, especially trying to fine tune that music to it. But Angel Beats, it left no crumbs. It left you in tears. That's my like honorable mention of the episode. Angel Beats is such a good classic short run that'll make you cry.
I haven't seen Angel Beats, but I know about it, and I know like how popular it is. What anime is? I think this is a shoujo that's like really popular. It has so many freaking adaptations that when you said Angel Beats, it reminded me, not specifically because since I never seen Angel Beats, but the name, it reminds me of Boys Over Flowers.
Oh, okay. One more. Have you ever seen Itazura Naki?
No, what is that?
No, it's called It's Like Mischievous Kiss. It has so many adaptations.
Oh, yes. I've seen that. I've seen the K-drama.
The K-drama, the J-drama, everything. They've done it in Taiwanese, Japanese, Chinese, every single one of them, and every single one smack. Like, I've never seen an anime or a manga get this many adaptations.
And that's the thing about shoujo adaptations too, because more recently, lately, we haven't really been getting many shoujo anime, but we get a lot of dramas based on shoujo, like K-dramas or J-dramas, live action dramas. And I wish we got more shoujo anime recently, because I feel like the anime industry is really like focusing more on other different demographics, and the top dogs are usually in shonen or whatever. But there are like a lot of shoujo anime that could get like really good adaptions and could become really popular, because shoujo back in the early 2000s was like the stuff. Everybody knew like a few shoujo anime that they watched. I wish we could go back to that. Like my next one on this list is one that I wish got an anime. It ended recently, but they just started like publishing it in English. But I wanted to read the whole thing, so I couldn't wait for the other volumes to come out. So I found another way to read this one specifically.
So what is your number two?
My number 2 is Uso Toki Rhetoric. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I'm surprised. You are like dipping.
Yes. No, because what I did is, because I watched like a lot of videos and to get some like recommendations, and also one of the YouTube channels I follow, she focuses a lot on shoujo, right? And so she has a Discord, and I went on her Discord and asked the members on there, what are some shoujo recommendations that you can recommend to me? And they gave me like this whole list of just things to watch and read. And so I was going through that list, and this one out of the entire list is the one that really is so good. So it's a mystery, okay? Because you can tell all on my list is just a whole bunch of different genres: fantasy, mystery, romance, comedy. This one is about a 16-year-old girl named Kanako Urabe, who has the unique ability to hear when people lie. So whenever somebody lies, she hears like this like weird like bell ringy sound in her ears. And so she can tell when someone is lying. And she ends up leaving her hometown because she was ostracized because of it, because she will always catch these people in their lives. And she was so innocent about it. And she would say, "You're lying." And then people would have to deny it, and it would cause like trouble in people's lives. And she felt like she just would only bring disaster into people's lives. So she ended up leaving home, and she ends up meeting this detective named Soma Iwa. And long story short, she ends up becoming his detective's assistant. And together they solve mysteries while befriending all the people within the town that they go in. And it takes place in the Showa era. So that's like in the 1920s of Japan. It's just so good because it starts off like being really like episodic. So the first few mysteries that go on are like mysteries that don't really correlate with each other, but it introduces you to the wider cast and it introduces you to the duo's dynamic so you can know what's going on, how the power of her being able to hear lies works, how the detective Soma uses his detective skills to solve mysteries. But then there's like this overarching mystery that goes throughout the entirety of the story. And it's just really good. And what I like about this one, it really like focuses on the friendship of the duo. There's like hints of romance in between, like later on, but I'm not gonna give it this is a spoiler. I'm not gonna say. But what I will say is this duo, they're just a good cast of characters. And I think like the main character, she starts off like a little bit boring because she's like more like to herself. She's like your generic protagonist. But as the story goes on, how she develops as a character and how her dynamic develops, how she learns how to use her power of hearing lies to her advantage and actually really just learns to accept that power and learns that it makes her unique in a good way. How she develops as a character really does just put her over the top, and it's just like really fun. And they're like some of my favorite characters in this story. I don't want to mention here. I just feel like people should read it because I think the first 2 or 3 volumes are available in English, and since it's still being printed, I think this is a good manga for people to just go and get and read to see if it's like really for you, because I really enjoyed it so much because I love mysteries. Like I grew up just loving mysteries. I know it's like really funny to say this, but watching Scooby Doo and stuff when I was younger, that
Mhm.
got me like into mysteries and like Sherlock Holmes. And I just love mysteries in general. And that's why I love this so much. It's so good. The story is very clever. The characters are very interesting and funny to get to know. There are like fun side stories in there. It's just really funny, really wholesome, but it also just has this great mystery for the characters in their past and specific characters and storylines that come in the future. And any character that appears in one part of the manga usually comes back to somehow helping the story overall later on. So it's just so good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You gotta share your list with me because I need a lot more stuff to watch. Like I said, I'm a oldie but goodie. But yeah, I need a lot. I need more shoujo stuff to watch now, just because I think that all of my anime watch list currently is like simulcast shonen.
It's so good. You should like really read it. Oh, it's so good.
I
And it's
just
not
don't while you were talking, but yeah,
yeah.
I can see that it's good.
Yeah. It's not that long too. I read it like the first week I got into it, I finished it. So, but also I was binge reading it too. So I was like really just trying to get it in. But it was so enjoyable, and it's a really great show. It needs an anime. What it needs is an anime. Cause I would pay money. I would pay money for this to get adapted into an anime. It's so good.
Okay, yeah. Oh, okay, good, good, good. That's how I am. Like, I want really good mangas because I don't always have to see it in the anime. That would be a plus. But when you can appreciate that, oh, this is such a good manga, animation would bring it to a plus.
Yeah. Speaking of Violet Evergarden, like I said earlier, Kyoto Animation is the animation studio that I will pick to animate this because it's just such a beautiful work of art in
Mhm.
general as a whole as a manga that they would bring this to life. It would be great. It would be so beautiful. It's
Mhm.
so nice. Especially the backgrounds. The backgrounds, they're so good.
Well, I'm excited for these recommendations.
Yes. Speaking of recommendations, I know you said an honorable mention or two, but do you have any more honorable mentions to say before we get to our number ones?
Shoujo honorable mentions. Ooh, let's see. So my first one was Angel B. My next one I can say is gonna be Oh My Goddess. I'm always on the oldies. I love it. They give you that classic feel, that classic animation. When we're first starting out with anime, those late 90s, early 2000s. But oh my God, is the storyline just gives, again, it's about goddesses. And they have this wholesome part of them, but you also have the ones that have the attitudes and stuff. So when it comes to Oh My Goddess, the main character was trying to order some takeout. It ended up on a goddess hotline, and they're gonna grant him one wish.
That's
And
so anime.
yes, he asked for his goddess, for the goddess who answered him, which was Belle Dandy. He asked for her to stay with him forever. And it just goes from there because they've never really had a wish like that. And like her sisters came down, they tried to take her away from the situation, but then they also got roped into it too. And that's one of your anime that kind of take place in a temple, which is like that's my kind of trope that I love because my second honorable mention is gonna be Da Da Da. That's super old. I can't even tell you the artist for it because I was on like a Rumiko Takahashi thing at that time.
She's
That's
such
when
a
I
good
got like
writer.
what? That's when I got to Rama One Half, Urusei Yatsuro. That's when I was actually reading the Inuyasha manga. It was amazing. But Da 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 is my second other honorable mention in there. And that one is also your fantasy kind of school life. But it is centered around these two friends. Their parents were friends. And her parents, I think, are astronauts or something. And his dad is the monk at the temple, and he owns the temple. But of course, for some reason, the temple owners always want to go off on a spiritual journey and leave the kids there to run the temple while they're gone. And this happens in both of those anime. And then Da Da Da, that I think a couple nights after, a little alien crash lands in the area around the temple, and they end up taking care of this alien baby. But yeah, it's a super oldie, like the old animation, but those ran on forever. Like Da Da Da, Koto-cha, Marmalade Boy. I love that. That real old 90s animation is what like pulled me in and kept me in.
Yes, like the 90s stuff, the 90s and 80s stuff, like those anime are the anime that like really ran for long periods of time, especially I guess because they had a lot of filler sometimes too,
Mhm.
because they're going on concurrently with like, and anime still does this. They still have a lot of filler, especially in the shonen. Let's talk about One Piece, right? That anime
Ah,
is going on as the manga goes on. Sailor Moon, Naruto, Boruto, anything you can think of, My Hero Academia. If it's like a really popular anime, you can bet it's an anime that is long running and has at least 200 episodes.
yeah, no, I'm no good for One Piece. I'm literally downstairs binge watching One Piece as we speak. I've been watching it all day. I went back a couple episodes. I'm in like the 150s of the Skypiea arc. And I know I'm further than that, but I had to recap because it literally has like filler episodes. You have 7 episodes of a fight scene.
Are you watching the filler episodes? Or are you? Because I see a lot of people whenever they get into One Piece, they give them like a guide to know what episodes to skip
No,
and which
I
ones
have
to.
no guide. I have no guide. I really don't want a guide. I want
Uh-huh.
to watch the entire thing, but
It's an
it's
admirable
taking,
goal.
oh, it's taking me forever. Me and one of my friends from Alcorn, me and Mari are going back and forth. She's in like the 190s and I'm in the 150s. And even I think PT is past me. She's up in the 200s now. But
Oh,
I really have to sit and binge watch on a weekday, like a weekend like this. Because if I try to watch it in the evening times, like I watch single episodes of anime I'm just trying to catch up on, I ain't gonna get nowhere.
you have to like be dedicated if you want to go and watch One Piece. Honestly, I feel like at this point, there's no way that you can't have some sort of dedication to watch that show. You have to get up and force yourself to watch it sometimes, maybe.
I'm trying. I've been talking about being stuck on episode 140 for like 3 months. So I'm trying.
It's not my type of thing because I'm the type of person that starts watching something and then I leave it and then I don't finish it and then I come back later maybe to finish it. It's very hard for me to binge watch anything. It has to be really good for me to binge watch it because I'm just not a binge watcher. I'm
Well,
not
you
into
need to
that.
binge watch Attack on Titan. Do it. It is one of those that pull you in at the very first episode. I'm so sorry, fans. We've gone into shonen, but Attack on Titan, we'll have to circle back on it. I'm telling you,
No.
it is one of those, and it's one where they don't give you much character background, But the whole situation, once you get that understanding as for what's going on, you get your love for certain characters. And it's just, I don't know. It's another one where you'll cry. You're constantly crying. It's one of those. If you're emotional like me, I be crying. A lot of other people don't, but it's one of those where I'm going to fangirl. I'm going to scream at this TV. It's that one.
You know what? I might as well. I might have to go and binge watch it. I might have to go.
It's
I've been scared for years because I remember when it first came out, the anime first came out. I was like, should I get into this? And then I was hearing about it and I was like, I don't want to get into this. I don't know.
I avoided it for years. I was one of those. And now I'm a true believer. It's that good. If I ever get into a good conversation with somebody or they're like not that into anime and I have to kind of explain myself why do I love it so much, I'll tell them, do me a favor and just go watch Attack on Titan. If you never watch another anime a day in your life, that one is going to stick. And they come back and they tell me and they're like, I ain't even gonna lie, that was pretty good. Yeah, I know it was. I know it was.
It is good. It is good. But I'm gonna have to tell myself, you know what, like sometime next month, I'm on like ready myself mentally. So sometime next month, I'll be ready to watch Attack on Titan.
Go ahead and bite the bullet for your girl. You go love it.
And then I'll text you and be like, what'd you do to me? In my room, like crying at night, playing my revenge plan on you because you made me watch the show and made me cry all day.
I'm telling you, if you're as emotional as I am, and get as emotionally connected to anime the way that I do, that's it. And they even give you like side stories, side character animations in the meantime. I haven't even finished those yet. It's like a special season, I think. I see them on Crunchyroll all the time. I've only gotten to 3 or 4 of them, but they give you even more insight as to what they do. And I'm just like, okay, they even did side animations from the regular storyline to give you more insight on the Titans, give you more insight on the people that are fighting the Titans. It's their one. It's that little girl. She did it.
Okay, so for my honorable mentions, I tried to do like this variety. My honorable mentions, the thing about me when I was doing this list, like I said, I was trying to make sure that I was getting as much variety as I could in a top 5 list. So anybody that was interested in a different genre, if they didn't like fantasy, they can go to mystery or comedy or something like that. And so my honorable mentions is filled with a lot of like stuff that we were talking about earlier. Not a lot, a few things. Like I have Fruits Basket in there. I have Card Captor Sakura. I have Magic Knight Ray Earth. Okay, so let me go a little slower. Okay, so my first one I have is this one called Basara. And this is one that I wanted to include on my list because it is good. But at the time when I was trying to binge read all the stuff, I just couldn't get into it as much as I wanted to. And it's about this girl named Sarasa who it takes place in this post-apocalyptic Japanese setting, right? And there's like this golden emperor and he's like really obsessed with maintaining his power and it's like keeping his power or whatever. And so he appoints territories to his children, allowing them to rule as subordinates to his kingdom. And they call them subordinate kings. And it's just, I don't want to get too much into it because I feel like people should really read it. That's why it's only in my honorable mentions. But Sarasa, she is the twin sister to this boy named Tarata, right? And so he ends up being dubbed the Child of Fate. And what this Child of Fate is meant to do is release all of these people. He's destined to destroy like the king and release all of these people from despair in a few ways. And Tara ends up getting killed and murdered. And so it turns out that Sarasa has to take on the mantle of the Child of Fate because, as you can probably tell, she's actually the true Child of Fate. But because she's a girl, nobody actually really believed it. And it got violent because basically they cut his head off, I think, her brother's head off. But the Red King ends up killing him. And so she becomes the Child of Fate and wields the mystical sword of Bayako and leads the survivors of the Bayako village. And she ends up pretending to be her brother. So a lot of her allies don't even know that she's alive. They thought that her brother was her. And her goal is to basically save her people and save her country and live in a land that's fertile, that's like peaceful, basically. And so she goes against the king. And as the story goes on, she becomes a really great leader. She gets very proficient in swordplay, and she becomes the leader of the Tatara army, and it has a little bit of romance in there. It has a lot of fantasy. It has a lot of drama, a lot of action. It's just really good. And like I said, Card Captor Sakura, this is an anime that made me cry eventually once I got into it. Not because it's sad, but because it's just so wholesome. You ever seen this anime? Because I know you know
I
of it.
think, yeah, I know of it. I've seen some episodes. I was never like a true lover of the magical girl era, and I hate to say that. I hate to say that.
Yeah. This one,
Like Captain Sakura, Tsubaki Chronicles, they could not keep me.
yeah. Oh, Card Captor Sakura is like because I watch magical girl anime, but I wouldn't call myself. Well, I would call myself like kind of an aficionado in like the tropes of like the magical girl genre. And so Card Captor Sakura really takes those tropes and what they wanted to do with it's actually Sakura. I keep saying Sakura because in the dub they say Sakura, which is named after Sakura trees. But
Right.
it really does take the tropes of the magical girl and it was meant to be like a homage to that genre. And it really just takes a lot of those tropes and turns them on their head. And as this show goes on, it's just really good. Whenever I watch this show, I always get like this weird, light, happy, funny feeling in my chest. I don't know why, but it just really makes you emotional, especially by the time you get to the end of the anime and the final opening is called Platinum. It's so good, and I started crying every time that opening came on. So that's every episode I started crying.
Yeah, because
It
it's like it,
especially, because there's this character, she's Sakura's cousin. I don't wanna get into it, but her name is Tomoyo, and she's just like this sweet little girl who is always there for Sakura, and she's like the best friend that you could ever have. And then I was just crying every time she came up on the intro, and I was just like, "Dang." And, like, it's still going so the anime and the manga ended in the '90s or the early 2000s, but then they brought it back for a new manga called Clear Card, and they have a season that came out. It came out in, like, 2017 or something. We were in, like, still in high school when it came out, and so they
mhm.
have 1 season of that, and they're working on a new season of it now, and I wouldn't say that season is as good as the original anime, it's not, but it really does capture those feelings, and as it goes on, it does grow more and more into a better show. And it's just like the characters in Cardcaptor Sakura are just like really developed, and there's a lot of romance and a lot of friendship and a lot of action and just like beautiful animation. And it stands out as a magical girl anime because she doesn't have like transformation sequences, right? Every
Mhm.
episode, though, when she goes to get like these different cloud cards, because she ends up opening a book, and that's basically the premise of Card Captor Sakura is she opens this book and all the cards fly out, and so she has to gather them again with the help of her friends, and she changes outfits every episode because Tomoyo is rich, her cousin is really rich, and so she has
Mhm.
outfits just made for her, and every episode she just has a different outfit on, and it's just so cute. It's so wholesome.
Now I gotta go watch it. See, when I was younger, I don't know why, but the Magical Girl just didn't stick with me. I watched quite a few, and even like my number one is a Magical Girl, of course. But it's a freaking cult classic.
My number one's a
But
magical girl too, so not the same one, but they're similar.
yeah, okay. But yeah, I'm not a Magical Girl person, even though my number one is. But your description is just giving. I really gotta go back and I don't know, give a little appreciation for the
Mhm.
classics and even the ones that kind of divvy off into a different genre. I'm gonna definitely have to widen my horizons on that.
Yeah, if you wanna watch one with a different genre too, it's more comedic, it's more action heavy, it's called Library Wars. I haven't read much of it, but this is one of the manga that the people I asked, like, for different stories to read, this is one they gave me, and they said it's really good, so I'm gonna get into this one in a little bit, so I was like, "I should give you this recommendation." And also another one, Magic Knight Ray Earth, that's a magical girl, but it's also like a mecha type of anime and just like Magic Knight Ray Earth is also made by Clamp. Clamp just hits it with the storytelling, that's all I gotta say. Every single
See,
time. Um,
see.
yes, and there's another one. You ever watched The Red Nana?
Yes. Oh my God.
Mhm.
So Nana gives me Paradise Kiss vibes.
Yes, I was that's also on my list because we're gonna get back to Nana, but Paradise Kiss has a story that came out before that takes place in the same universe called Neighborhood Story. And I discovered that last year, and the anime is not anywhere on any official site. So I have to go into the depths of the deep, dark webs of the internet to find Neighborhood Story. And I put Neighborhood Story and Paradise Kiss in the same honorable mentions because I just thought it was cool that two stories took place in the same universe and it has some crossover characters. The stories don't cross over because Neighborhood Story takes place years before Paradise Kiss, but there are characters that come into Paradise Kiss from Neighborhood Story. Both of them are very fashionable shows too, because both of them take place in like fashion schools. I just have to mention that. And Nana too. Fashion and anime is just top tier.
Yeah, Paradise Kiss fashion especially. I don't know what. I think it's because it's a josei anime, like it's going into the young adults, your 20s ladies, for it to be so editorial-esque. And it gives you that risque vibe when it goes to their fashions and how the fashion even correlates with the storyline of that episode or the whole thing as the whole anime and manga as a whole. It gave for their full color photos and the opening and the ending theme. And when you actually got that full editorial look that George was trying to give her, I don't know. And that's another anime that made me cry. 12 episodes. I think it's 12.
It's 12. It's 12 or 13.
Episodes. And it gave feels, it gave like grown emotion, and it gave like relationship. You win some, you lose some, give and take kind of thing.
Nana is a different breed though. So like Neighborhood Story, Paradise Kiss, and Nana are all made by the same creator. But they all are just like so good. And it's like
Nana was published by different.
Nope, they're by the same people. They might be in different magazines probably, but
They were published by different companies.
those are all like really character driven and drama driven. And not magical or anything in any way. They're just like character dramas. And they are so good.
Yeah, those go into the josei. I never know how to say certain words in Japanese, but that genre that's for like your older ladies, young adult kind of thing.
Now that we're finished with our honorable mentions, I guess we should go into our number ones. Okay. I'm gonna put like a drum roll in the podcast thing so people can hear a drum roll. Alyssa, what is your number one for your shoujo?
My number one for shoujo is, of course, it's Sailor Moon.
Yes.
Gotta give it to my girl, Usagi, Serena, whatever name you want to call her. The cult classic, the meatball head, the ponytails, the pigtails, the Sailor Scout. She gives it all. She's one of those characters I will fight toe to toe with any Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, Bleach gatekeeper, One Piece gatekeeper. If we go through all of these attacks, my girl is wiping out every single one of them.
Just about. Yeah.
Just about. My girl is wiping it out. She's wiping the floor with y'all in her heels.
Especially in like the manga too. Oh God, no. She like recreates the whole universe or something at the end.
Exactly. My girl has cosmic powers, celestial powers. There's certain things that, I mean, whether it's demon power, it's Dragon Ball power, it's devil fruit power, it's you being a demon slayer, or you got your Bankai with the sword, whatever, my girl is going to murder the whole universe. Like, she kills it in every single aspect, in every single season, every single rendition, whether it's even her live actions. I'm not too fond of them, but I'm not too fond of the character, what do you call it? Like the actresses.
You're talking about Pretty Guardian, Sailor Moon?
Yeah, Pretty Guardian just did not give for me.
Really? People usually love that one though.
It did not. I don't know why. I have mixed feelings on it. But even then, she gave. I can definitely be appreciative. She gave.
Like, what's your favorite aspect of Sailor Moon? If you were to like give like a pitch for Sailor Moon, why do you think people should watch the show?
I think people should watch Sailor Moon because when you get into it and you get to see the situations, it goes from just her to going to like the circus theme that they had. There's a trope where you have like her daughter. There's Minnie Moon. There's Chibi Moon, the one that's just the essence. There's the one where Minnie Moon is now like the black lady. There's so many different things that happen in Sailor Moon. It does not give you just magical girl. Like, they changed outfits the way that Totally Spies changed outfits.
Yes, they did every episode, and just like the characters and like Ray and her iconic overalls. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like they changed, they do change every episode, and then they bring. And what I like about shows like Sailor Moon and Totally Spies is although they change outfits every episode, you do see like pieces come back in, like just like a regular person in the closet. You're not gonna wear a different outfit every day. Every now and then you're gonna
Right.
see another outfit be pulled out. And they're gonna wear it again, or they're gonna wear it in a different way. That's one thing I like about Sailor Moon that really stands out. A lot of anime do it, but Sailor Moon went over like above and beyond because it went on for 200 episodes. So you had that for 200 episodes almost.
Yeah, 200 episodes, almost 200 different outfits besides their schoolgirl uniform. When they
Mhm.
were going to school, you had your situational comedies, you had your situational drama, you had full on the entire solar system of Sailor Scouts. And I'm talking about Sailor Stars, your inner Sailor Scouts, your outer Sailor Scouts. You had the Sailor Star Fighters, all of that. Everybody got their chance. Everybody got a backstory, whether it was a small character, somebody they were fighting, whatever. And even all like majority of the people they were fighting were in some way, shape, form, or fashion a Sailor Scout. And that's what gave.
Especially in the last arc. I don't want to do spoilers, but the villain of the last arc is a Sailor Soldier or Sailor Scout herself. And all of the people that work under her are also Sailor Soldiers or Sailor Scouts. And then so, especially in a manga, it like gets really deep and in depth about how that came to be and how outside of just our regular solar system where we have our main characters, there are tons and tons of planets and tons of solar systems out there with their own protectors outside the regular Sailor Soldiers that we know, and how it really just does open up the universe. I wish like Sailor Moon would continue so we could just see what else is out there because the creator Naoko Takeuchi introduced so much. You have to give the 90s anime the credit that it deserves because it deviated a lot from like its source material, but it took a lot of stuff from that source material and added just a whole bunch of backstory and character development that wasn't there because the creator had to work on such a short time limit to get these chapters out so that you could get like the story going on for the anime. We talk about like filler in anime. Sailor Moon has 200 episodes because of all the filler. And I'm looking at Sailor Moon Crystal, right? That show for the first two arcs together is 26 episodes, right? But when you see like the first two seasons, it's almost 100 episodes.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing. Like, people don't get that a shoujo anime can go on for so long. It can have all of your fight scenes that you're looking,
Mhm.
your drama, your suspense, because they produced for some loops with some of those. Whether it was character development, whether it was actual who was antagonist, who was your protagonist, who was right, who was wrong, and I mean everything else in between when it comes to Sailor Moon. They even had like solar eclipses, stuff that you would see. We don't see many of them in our portion of the US, but that's a normal thing in Japan. They use it to their advantage to go with the fact that it is solar system, celestial beings that they're dealing with and the power tropes that they had. And that's some stuff that you don't see. You know, you may see a Halley's Comet kind of thing in certain anime or even like an Avatar, but you aren't going to get your everyday situations like that or everyday occurrences that happen that'll affect an anime like they
Mhm.
kept with the times.
Sailor Moon really does dwell in like different genres too. At one point, it's a romance. Another point, it's a comedy. Another point, is just like this action suspense show or a manga or story that's going on. And that's why I think it like serves, especially like with this show, to read both the manga and watch like the original 90s anime. If you want to watch Crystal, you can go ahead. But like reading and watching both those because you see like the differences, but you also see how these characters and the dynamics are different between the two stories because a lot of times in the original 90s anime, you see like Ray and Usagi like pair up a lot, or Serena, or Ray and Ami or Amy, depending on which dubs you watch. But in like the manga, you get like Ray and Minako, Sailor Venus, and like their dynamic because Sailor Venus is the leader of the Sailor Soldiers. She's the one that leads them. She's the one who has like the sword, who kills Queen Beryl. She's the one with all like the powers. And Sailor Moon Crystal, I'll tell you this, if there's one character they give a lot of justice to, is Sailor Venus, because she's like that one character out of all the characters that gets multiple different transformation sequences that aren't just the 90s anime sequences traced over. Like
Right.
and
Right.
and like I just because I have to be like the Sailor Venus person. I have to like hype her up because she's my favorite character. But she had a transformation that was different from her original one in the first season. She had a different one in the third season. She had a different one, the two movies that came out in 2021 or 2020. And the last movie, she has the same transformation sequence as those movies. But the fact that she had three or four different transformation sequences in one show, even more than Sailor Moon, tells you something. I want to do a whole episode about Sailor Moon. That should be like a episode you come back maybe. Sailor Moon. I feel like I should get you and just like another guest, and it would be like three of us just like gushing over Sailor Moon.
I'm
Right?
ready. Because, okay, and like I said, this is where my baby's name comes from. My oldest one's name is Amara, which is Taylor Uranus's name in the American ones.
Yes, because it was like Amara and Michelle. They were the cousin.
It's supposed to be Amara Michelle. I changed the middle name, but I'm
Really?
telling you, from like age 6 or age 7, I have notebooks from like second and third grade with Amara Michelle written in it because that was going to be my baby's name.
Those are some beautiful names. They really are. And they hit it so horribly in the first American dub. They hit it so horribly that they were like a lesbian lovers.
Yeah, they said they were cousins.
And they were like cousins. They're like cousins. But then all of a sudden you see holding hands. And they're not just holding hands. They're looking into each other's eyes lovingly and stuff like that. I'm like, those are cousins? Are you sure?
They tried it with that one. That was
They
like
tried.
your very first instance of that incestuous family relationship too.
Like they went from one extreme to two extremes. I'm like, wait. In order to avoid one thing, you added another layer to it instead of, because there were two dubs, right? So there are three English dubs, right? So you have the Deke dub, which is the one in the 90s, and you have the CWI dub, which is the one that came. It basically takes place in the same universe as the Deke dub. It keeps all the same names and a lot of the actors and stuff. They just took it to a new studio. But with the Deke dub, they ended up, what they did were they would cut stuff out of the episodes. They would cut full episodes out, sadly, but they would cut like some stuff out of episodes or change some things. So if something was in Japanese, they would change it to like English or whatever. The CWI dub was very lazy. So they would just take all the episodes and they would just dub over them, but change some of the things. There was this one, the character Fisheye. Fisheye is a male character in Japan, very feminine. And so in order to not, I don't know what they were trying to do, but they ended up changing him into a woman for the American dub. And there was one episode where he removes his clothes. And so in order to show that he wasn't a man, they ended up erasing like the chest part, like the line in his chest, to show that there wasn't anything there. But instead of having that chest part removed, all you had was just this body that was just had nothing on it. I don't know how you say it. And it's like she just removed her clothes. She didn't have anything.
Like the man, like a mannequin?
Yeah, basically it was like a mannequin. Of course, because Sailor Moon, because they didn't show like any nasty stuff. Cause it was a show for kids, even in Japan. But the things that they allow in Japan aren't the same things they allow over here. And so they just ended up erasing the chest line. And so all you had was just like this blank body. It's like, why didn't you just draw in clothes if you're going to do all that? Or just cut out
the animation or cut out the scene.
Yeah, so it's just like really weird. But Sailor Moon, what I was trying to get to, because I was talking about Sailor Venus, there's this prequel to Sailor Moon called Codename Sailor V. And so it focuses on Sailor Venus. What a lot of people don't know is Sailor Venus was created before all the other Sailor soldiers, right? So her comic ended up coming out as a one shot, and they ended up wanting to make an anime out of her comic book, and they tried to make an anime out of it. But what happened was that they felt that there weren't enough characters to represent the show. So that's when the creator came up with the idea of creating Sailor Moon. So what she did was integrated the Sailor V character into the Sailor Moon universe, and then she was writing both at the same time. So Codename Sailor V ended up starting before Sailor Moon, but ending after Sailor Moon. And I still need an anime of that if it's what I need. But the reason why we don't have an anime of Codename Sailor V is because the manga publisher that published Sailor V, who had the rights to her at that time to make the anime, they ran out of business, so they became like bankrupt or something. I forgot. They just closed, and so that's why we don't have a Sailor V anime. But that's why she's my favorite because she has the most amazing powers. She's the leader. She's just amazing. Who's your favorite Sailor Moon character? I should ask you.
My favorite Sailor Moon character is actually Sailor Mercury.
Why Sailor Mercury?
Because she is a smart girl. She's so analytical. She's sweet. Like her character itself is super sweet. And she's the ditzy, not ditzy, so to say, that's going to be usagi, but she's I want to say kind of like your sheltered one. She's your shy one. She is very reserved.
She's also
but
rich.
Yeah, my girl got money. But also when it comes down to it, that reserve that she has is also like her power when it comes to her actually talking or being real confident about something.
That's what I like about Sailor Mercury. That's why I think in Japan she was like really the favorite because she's like the character that all the Japanese adults wanted their children to be because she's reserved. She's a good student. She does what she's supposed to do, but she also has this arc of learning to believe in herself and learning about her like her power. And like in the original Sailor Moon anime, she ends up getting like her own anime special, Ami's First Love. You ever seen that?
No, I need to
It's so
look into a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah, Ami's First Love. It's only about 15 minutes, and it's because it came out with the third Sailor Moon movie, and it's about her like receiving this love letter, and it's adapted from a story in the manga, and she ends up getting her own whole new entire transformation sequence and a whole attack that's exclusive to that special when it was in the 90s, but they brought the attack over into Crystal because they were adapting the manga. No other character got that outside of Sailor Moon.
Well, yeah, I got to get off all this mainstream. I'm always on the mainstream stuff and I miss the little stuff.
Sailor Moon is just so fun and cool. If there's one magical girl anime I would say to watch, it is Sailor Moon because it is iconic. It really did change the magical girl genre because the magical girl genre before that was really just it was a lot of girls that would go through like Sailor Moon goes through a lot of slice of life, but it focused mostly on the slice of life and using the magic to get out of just like these weird, wacky situations. It wasn't like a lot of action or anything like that. But
Right.
Sailor Moon ended up changing the game because Naoko Takeuchi ended up taking her basis for Sailor Moon from Super Sentai. And Super Sentai is basically Power Rangers over here. But in Japan, so in Power Rangers, they would just take like the action scenes, the in-suit scenes, and put them into the Power Rangers and just film like the out of costume scenes over in America, right? And they would dub over the fight scenes. Super Sentai is where they get those scenes from, and it's a bit more mature or whatever. And so Sailor Moon was based off that. So that's why you have all the different characters wearing like the same outfits, but they're all like different colors, and they have all these like really powerful attacks that kind of seem out of nowhere because she really based that off Super Sentai and the action and stuff like that. And it's just like really cool. It just really is.
Yeah, she gave us a timeless, eclectic, folk classic. Sailor Moon is like the epitome of shoujo anime, in my opinion.
And Sailor Moon really inspired my number one pick. Sailor Moon inspired a lot of anything after 1992. Sailor Moon inspired. I'm just gonna say that that's the power of Sailor Moon in ways that we may or may not know. It inspires like even American animation. Watch any cartoon after the year 2000 and you will see like some reference to Sailor Moon.
Somewhere.
Somehow. What's the show? Star versus the Forces of Evil, Steven Universe, anything. All of those shows have Sailor Moon references. It's amazing.
Yeah, and card captor Sakura in that one particular, everybody thinks that their wand is so original, and it's a card captor Sakura original.
Sailor Moon really just took the tropes of Magical Girl, turned them into something different, and just ran with it. A lot of people talk about Madoka Magica and how that show is like really dark. But I'm like, Sailor Moon's the one who started it. Watch the 90s anime, it gets really dark. And especially the manga, that gets really dark at the end. And like a lot of things that might have inspired Madoka Magica too.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about Sailor Moon before we move on to my number one pick?
I think we covered it, honestly. 200 episodes, cult classic. She is that girl. You even see, okay, last thing, Sailor Moon was so timeless. You even see a lot of whether it is memes, whether it is the other anime giving you crossover esque vibes or giving you where like they do their Halloween specials and they dress up as other anime characters. You saw Sailor Moon everywhere.
Oh, another thing about Sailor Moon I just thought about is like Sailor Moon as a franchise. If you don't like one part of Sailor Moon, I don't see why you wouldn't. But if you don't like one part of Sailor Moon, there's always another part of Sailor Moon to get into because you don't just have the 90s anime. You have the one that's going on with Crystal and it's having the 2 new movies coming out. You have the musicals, you have the live action show, you have the manga. Anything that you can like really try to get into, you can get into it, and you will at least like one piece of Sailor Moon media that you come across. I must say, like the Sailor Moon musicals are actually like really good.
I'm not a musical
No, this
person. I'm not
person.
even gonna lie. No, I don't know why. It's just the constant thing. That's why I don't have a real love for Disney movies. I can't do all the singing.
I can understand it. I can understand it. But the Sailor Moon musicals just take the content from the manga and the anime and adapt them in ways that are just like really different and just like really fun. And they've been going on since the 90s. They're still going on. My favorite ones are the musicals that went from 2013 to 2017 because it basically kept the same cast for the most part. Like people leave in and out because the original cast, like the original 5 members, left after the 3rd musical, and then there are 5 new girls that came in and took over the inner soldiers' roles. But it does the whole story arc, and so it's one concurrent story, and so it's just like really good. It has fun music, and it's weird because you're watching the musical, right? And so they're doing a whole bunch of stuff on stage, so it's really just like a whole bunch of lights when they're doing their attacks and stuff, but somehow it captivates you, and it's just like really fun. And they do some interesting stuff that they don't do in the anime and the manga, or they take some things from the anime and the manga and they enhance it or add more to it with backstories. They even do like their own original stories too, especially in the earlier musicals in like the 90s and early 2000s, doing a whole bunch of original stories too. It's just great. It's great. Just Sailor Moon is just that girl.
Oh, period.
Yes. Venus, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. I'm sorry, Pluto isn't even a planet anymore, but she's still a soldier.
But my girl was the best. She was the timekeeper. She was the tallest one.
Yeah.
That was crazy. They would, of course, make the smallest planet, who's now no longer a planet, but the tallest character.
At least she still has her powers. You can give her that. Okay. So moving on to my number 1, which is similar to Sailor Moon in a lot of ways, and it's also a magical girl show that really just pushed the genre forward in so many different ways to where after this franchise, I should say, came out, like anime was never the same after this. It is Precure or Pretty Cure.
I haven't heard Precure in so long.
Yes.
And I know there's like a ton of, I didn't even want to say like adaptations, but like a ton of different seasons. And so you get into Fresh Pretty Cure, tons of them.
Yeah, I said Sailor Moon took the Sentai formula, but Precure really took the Sentai formula because every season is a new team, new powers, new storyline, new theme, because every season has a theme. And Pretty Cure is literally the biggest magical girl franchise in the world. And they really don't show it outside of like Asian countries, but it's also one of the biggest anime in the world, biggest anime franchises in the world, I should say, with it, because I'm about to get into it, like what Precure is all about. But let me compare to One Piece and Sailor Moon. Sailor Moon and One Piece is worth like $12 billion, and Sailor Moon is worth like $13 billion, respectively. And that's including like their overseas sales. Precure alone in just Japan, because that's where it's biggest at, and you don't really get much Precure overseas up until recently, is worth $9 billion just in Japan. Alone. That's how popular this franchise is. It's like the magical girl franchise. So I was introduced to like Precure when I was like 11 to 12 years old. We were like in middle school. And that's when I ran into, I forgot which Precure was at the time. I think it was Sweet Precure, but because there are a lot of them. I didn't really watch it until like 8th grade. So I got a little bit older and I watched the original season. And what I realized when I watched Precure is that, because what got me into Precure is what kind of pushed me away from Sailor Moon for a little bit, is that Sailor Moon would always be the one who would get the new transformations, so who would always finish off the enemies. Even though you had all those other characters there using their attacks or whatever, they could never like finish off the enemies for the most part. besides a few instances. Precure didn't do that. Everything was fair game. Any main character, all the main characters had the long transformation sequences. All the main characters had the action. And when I say action, they didn't have any other action. They had Dragon Ball Z action. Literally on the first few seasons of Precure, the animation director, the fight coordinator for Dragon Ball Z, was the one who directed the Precure fights. And they were
Really?
literally Dragon Ball Z fights. Like, they were some of the best fights that came out during that time period, and still have some of the best fights in anime, yet nobody watches this freaking franchise because Precure is so unique because it influences so much of anime as a whole. We talk about how you see Sailor Moon references everywhere. Any anime that came out post like 2006 has referenced Precure in some way. Like, even, you ever heard of that show? I think the most recent one that I can think of. You ever heard of the show Way of the House Husband?
Yes, I love Way of the House Husband.
They did a whole thing, like a whole opening sequence on the Way of the House Husband that was based on Precure. Like, there's like this police, they're like called Polycure or whatever. They're based like on police officers, and then they just did that as a thing for Precure, right? So Precure is literally everywhere, and the thing that's so unique about Precure is that it's less magical girl show and it's more of a superhero show, right? Because it has your things like your transformations and your characters, but Precure is the one that really pushed like the darker things, and even though it's for little girls, like little girls from 4 to 13 or whatever, really pushed the genre in so many different ways with their action scenes. And a lot of people sleep on this stinking show, but it's so good. It really is. Like, one of my favorites, especially when it comes to action scenes and character development, two of them are Heartcatch Precure, which is one I think everyone should watch, and Go Princess Precure. Go Princess Precure has some of the best fights in anime for a 49 or 50 episode show that went around year round, and like, people continue to sleep on it. Every time I recommend Precure to somebody, they're like, "Oh, that's pretty cool," or "Oh, I'll watch it." But it really is just that good and influences like so much. It influences Madoka Magica too. I'm sorry, I see themes that are in Madoka Magica, fight scenes that are in Madoka Magica, character development things that were done in Precure first that you can look at Precure and you can tell that Madoka Magica like literally took directly from this franchise, right? Because it's just that big. It's just that big. And it's on its 20th anniversary now too. I'm trying not to go too much into it because when our podcast hopefully gets like popular enough, I want to do a whole episode on Precure and just gush about it, just all episode for 3-4 hours.
We've gushed on some excellent ones, but I definitely need to get up on Precure so that we could gush together. I don't have people to do this with. This is amazing.
Yes, the Precure, I think the one that you should watch like right now, since it's the one that's going on right now, because Precure is in their 20th anniversary, believe it or not, is the one called Soaring Sky Precure. If you have like Crunchyroll, they're since 2020, they've finally been like doing like the most current seasons and doing simulcast on those.
Okay,
Watching
good.
that
Okay,
one.
good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yes, watching that one is so fun because that one is so exciting because the leader of this team is not a pink cure, she's actually a blue cure, right?
What?
And yes, the main character is a blue cure, and it's the first male precure. There's a first male precure. He's the orange precure in the season 2.
You
Yes.
put me on so much stuff today. I love it.
Yes, and to end my Precure like gush over it before, because I want to give some recommendations too. I'm gonna read this quote that somebody wrote that really takes Precure and puts into this neat package. They said, "While the show is aimed at children, it knows the importance of not treating them as such, so it doesn't pull its punches when it really matters. Precure is a franchise about friendship, trying your best and trying your best with your friends. But even when it deals with serious topics like death or child abandonment, it never talks down to the audience, nor does it try to exploit the drama for shock value. Instead, it approaches these moments with brushes of honesty and earnest optimism, something that you rarely see in other properties, and try to cater exclusively to an adult audience. I really do think Precure, despite being for kids, is like one of the most mature anime out there because it treats its audience like an audience. Just because it's for kids, it doesn't talk down to them. It tells them the stories in ways that they can understand, but in ways that anybody can relate to. And a lot of adult anime specifically always try to be like super violent or dramatic or they try to lean too far in a lot of areas that really don't make it adult. It just makes it like a lot of anime. I think that sometimes are shows that people think are for adults really are just like anime just made for like teenage boys.
Yes, definitely. Yeah,
but
they try to give the adult theme to a lot of stuff, even though their execution gives teenage boy.
yes, exactly. And Precure doesn't do that. Precure really just does the best at what it does in storytelling. But if anybody wants to watch Precure, I suggest you go on Crunchyroll because the seasons that they have on there, they have the original season, Futari wa Precure. They have Kira Kira Precure a la mode. That one's like a cooking season. That's my least favorite season because they don't do like the hand-to-hand combat. It's just like literally the action is literally them like throwing like cream all around and it has no impact to it whatsoever. And the story is okay. They do have this couple. We talk about like Sailor Uranus and Neptune, these two characters that are like them in a way. They have that same similar dynamic. So if you like that, I guess you can watch that. Even though it's just not that good. If you want to see that dynamic, just go watch season 3 of Sailor Moon, if I'm being honest. They have Healing Good Precure, which is that one came out during COVID and it's about healing and health, being healthy and things like that. The main character is voiced by Madoka from Madoka Magica too. So there's a lot of themes that those two shows actually share. That one came out in 2020 during COVID, but before COVID became widespread. So it's really weird because the things of that show actually deal with a lot of things that were happening in the real world at the time, even though when they were making the show, they didn't anticipate any of that happening. And then you have, let's see, Tropical Reef Procure. It's much more comedic, but it's also really fun. That one has to do with like mermaids and stuff too. The first mermaid Precure is in there. A lot of things that because Precure has a lot of dynamics when it comes to like their color characters. The pink character is usually like the most outgoing character. The yellow character is usually the one they change the personality of the most. The blue cure is usually the one that's like the smartest and so on and so forth. But that one really takes the dynamics and flips them on their head. And not every character has the same type of similar personality traits. And then you have after that, I'm trying to name all of them on Crunchyroll, Delicious Party Precure. That one's okay. That one really is like the precursor to the current season because they introduce a lot of male characters in that season that actually are involved in the combat in a lot of ways. But it really does lead more into the current season, which is like really good, which is Soaring Sky Precure. So if you want to watch Precure legally, those are the 6 ones you can watch. Now, if you want to find some that may not be available in English besides with fan subs, I suggest you watch Go Princess Precure, Smile Precure, or the last one that a lot of people like really love to recommend because it really is just that good, Heart Catch Precure. Because, yeah, I'm just talking. I need to shut up now.
No, all great recommendations. Definitely, once you get into like a franchise like that, I definitely would say make sure that you watch all of them because there may be something that was given in one that wasn't given in the other. That may be your niche that you really like in anime.
And also just jump into any random one because every season besides 2 are just standalone. So you can watch a few episodes of one. If it's not clicking with you, you can just go to another one.
Yeah. Yeah. See, that's what I love when it gets into something like that.
And then also they have the movies too. So if you ever want to see like all the Precure come together, they have their crossover movies. And they also have because they used to release 2 movies for every season every year. So you have the yearly crossover movie and then the movie that just focused on like the main team doing their own thing with their stories. But now they switched after COVID to just doing 1 movie per year. And some of those movies have been crossover movies. So they will combine both of them. So you will have those movies be crossover movies. But for the most part, like if you want to see movies that are just like really big, because there was the one that came out in 2018 for Hokuto. That was the last anniversary. That was for the 15th anniversary. They had every single cure and every single voice actor that voiced those cures come back for that movie. And so you had like probably 70, 60, 70, some like in that range of like your favorite characters all coming back to fight and do their thing for the movie. It was great.
It's 55 of them and even in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Ooh, that's gross. They be doing they stuff. I swear. We need some crossovers like that in regular animation. I don't think we've seen a crossover like that since freaking Scooby-Doo. Ever had John in a crossover.
Yeah. No, that's really accurate though. That's really true.
Yeah, we have not seen any crossovers in actual like American cartoon, American animation besides like Scooby Doo and some Disney Channel stuff. And that's only in like certain promotions that Disney Channel will give you crossovers. Now, in real life situations, like real, not real life situations, but
Live
in
action.
real shows, live action shows, you'll get a Disney crossover here and there. But for cartoon wise, the Nickelodeon doesn't give more. The last one they gave was like Jimmy Neutron,
And Tim, yeah, Fairly Odd Parents.
yeah,
Jimmy
like
Terry Power Hour.
way back when. We don't get that anymore. And that's one thing that they do in anime that I love. Either that or they keep the universe going the way that you have like Soul Eater and Fire Force that goes hand in hand. Or you have all of your Pretty Cures and they come together for a crossover for all of those. And you have 50, 60, 70 different Pretty Cure characters together. That's amazing.
It's so fun. Anime is just really, but I think anime is allowed to do that because you have so many different creators doing all these separate stories. Anime and manga in general, I think of how we look, how they're able to do these crossovers because you have a lot of people like Toriyama who created Dragon Ball. He also created a whole bunch of other manga and anime that he can put in his own universe if he wanted to. There are anime and manga that he used in the past that he doesn't write stories for anymore, but he brings those characters into Dragon Ball, things like that. You don't really get that in American comics unless it's like an indie comic book,
Right.
or unless it's the big two like Marvel and DC when they have their whole big universes. So you can like see all these characters cross over. You can see Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman cross over in the Justice League while they still have their own comics for their individual stories as well.
Yeah, definitely.
How do you enjoy this episode? I'm a fan of.
I've had the time of my life. I don't get conversations like this often, or even someone, not even to say to go tit for tat, but to have as much insight or even more insight into certain things that I watch. It's a breath of fresh air to hear a different opinion than just your own or reading
Yes.
comments.
It's really nice to talk about this stuff with different people, and it was nice getting your insight too. Because I haven't seen every anime on your list, but how you were just talking about them and the recommendations that you were giving me too, whether I knew about them or not, really just made me want to go watch them or maybe want to give them a chance. And it's just really great to just have these type of conversations and just to be like, just to nerd out a little bit.
Yes, nerd out a little bit, nerd out a lot. All of your recommendations, I've seen maybe, let's say 33%, because I've seen some episodes of Card Captor. I've seen certain episodes of The Baki Chronicles and some stuff in Pretty Cure, not a lot. That's why I just said I'm not real well versed on it because I do skip around in a lot of your magical girl era kind of things. Some of your recommendations just have me like you pulled me in your description, what you got from it. I'm in it to win it. I need the whole list.
Yes, I'm gonna send you a list. I'm gonna make because I have the list of the stuff that they have, and I have some other stuff that I didn't include in this list. I'm just gonna give that whole list to you, and you can do the same thing for me if you think there's something that I may not have watched because I watch shojo more than shonen and things like that. But I would like to because I know you look at the different demographics more than I do probably too. You probably watch like a lot of good shonen too that you might like.
Oh, there's so much shonen that I'm into right now
Mhm.
that I'm going like either simulcast or I've watched it already. I'm waiting on the next season to come. Because I've never been one to stay up to date on a series until I finally got into Attack on Titan during COVID. That's when I actually started paying for Crunchyroll. I wasn't on somebody else's. I could watch whatever I wanted. I can go not mess up anybody else's watch list. And now that I'm into it, there's so many oldies that I see now on Crunchyroll or some new ones that are coming out. And I'm just like, oh, let me try this. Let me try this one. There's what is like My Dress Up Darling. That one is, it's only 12 episodes so far, I think. The first season was only 12 episodes. We just got Don't Go With Me, Miss Nagatoro #2. Like these anime that we're doing simulcasts or that are just coming out is something a force to be reckoned with.
It's great, like, seeing anime. We just need some more shoujo anime because also a lot of, like, anime that people think are shoujo aren't even shoujo too, and I'm like, there's so many great shoujo manga out there that could be adapted into anime, but because nobody's really paying attention, like, we're not really getting a call for more of that, you know what I mean? And there are a lot of shonen too that are, like, really unique that are mangas that are like really unique that are being published that aren't getting anime adaptations that are like in different genres and things like that that really need to be given a voice.
Yeah, and that's what I don't like. Is like everything has to go with the times right now, and we don't see many of those pilot animes take like stepping out on faith and taking one for the team. And when you come back to it, maybe even a year or two after it was originally released, and they finally have something else in that genre, do people really give that appreciation or give the flowers to that manga that paved the way?
It used to be like even when mangas that weren't getting full on anime adaptations, they would get like OVAs and stuff too. They still do original video animations, but they don't do it as much now because like the digital era that we're in. But I would like to see like a company or so like really make some more like OVAs of lesser known stories to see if those can actually work as like full on anime series.
I think they can. Either that, or I would love for there to be like a startup studio that kind of went out on a whim for some of those smaller ones. Because even now, you see webtoons being turned into Crunchyroll anime. Why can we not see that for those anime that we've loved for so long that have that following, but y'all won't give us an actual animation to it?
Yeah, it's very true. It is very true. It's, like, really great being an anime fan, but sometimes it's hard too because you see this one thing that you want to get adapted or you want more people to pay attention to, and you have a following, right? But sometimes the following isn't as big as other ones are, and if you try to recommend it to others because of a prejudice they might have against it or things of that nature, or they might think it's something that they don't since they haven't even looked at it, they just come to, like, these early conclusions about it without even giving it a chance. You don't really have the ability to, like, really do anything about it.
Yeah, I know I get exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Thank you for joining me on this podcast, though. This was really an honor. I need to have you come back. Like, we need to figure out because since I try to get people to come on, have them come back, try to find something that I always say may or may not correlate with what we talked about previously. Because if I feel like what we talked about previously, I can't find anything to correlate with it, then I'm gonna come up with something that's a little bit more random. But we're talking about like shoujo anime and stuff. I feel like we can pick an anime out and go more in depth into one and actually talk about that. You know what I mean?
When you're ready, I'm going to binge watch so that it's fresh on my mind. And the next one, I want to be in your face.
Yes, that's what I want. I want to get to the point where I can, because right now I'm in my room, right? But if I started this podcast earlier, it would have been in my apartment, and then you really wouldn't have nowhere to go. But I'm trying to get to the point where I can have a space to be able to like bring people in and like really just like record face to face because that will just be so much fun because it's a different energy too. Because when I do have
Yeah.
people come in face to face, I usually just have like my sisters doing it because up until like last week, I only had one microphone. So I couldn't really do anything about that. I don't want anybody like all up in my face just talking in one microphone. So once I finally get like a good setup too, I want to, because I also want like a shelf of stuff. So once I talk the different topics that I talk about, see how we talked about like shoujo anime, I want to add like some shoujo memorabilia to that shelf. And so in the background, because I also want to start doing video podcasts at some point, but having the back behind me, the shelf of different memorabilia and stuff like of the different things that we talked about. So it can be like a little history shelf there that gives the history of the podcast.
Oh, yeah. Now, see, that's going to be cute. I'm ready. I'm ready to see where you go with this. This is again, it was such an honor for you to invite me on. I had a great time talking with you, and I'm so excited to see your progress as a podcaster.
Thank you. It was an honor having you. This is one of my favorite episodes. This was great.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No problem. I never get to really talk about shoujo anime with people that much. Truly.
You know where to find me.
Yes. Give me those recommendations. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be fun. I'll have you on again, obviously. Thank you for joining the I'm a Fan of podcast. We're about to say goodbye to everyone. Do you have any socials or anything that you want to let anybody know where they can find you?
My Instagram is _clean misfit_. You would see a lovely picture of me. I think I have some anime in my bio too. And you'll see Amara and Amori, so you'll know it's my baby. That's me. I'm mainly just on Instagram. My Snapchat is queen_Nali, Nali. And I'm not on anything else. I never get on anything else.
Look, see, you don't have a whole bunch of stuff to go into because I'm usually on Instagram and Twitter all the time. And I started a TikTok for this podcast, but I don't even like TikTok like that. It annoys me.
Yeah. Yeah, my Twitter is a spam. My TikTok, I don't have enough space on my phone to download all those videos that I want.
So thanks again for joining us on this podcast, Alyssa. Let's tell everybody bye.
Bye.
Thanks everyone for listening to the I'm a Fan of podcast.
Don't forget to support us by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and supporting our socials at IAFO Fans on Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit. Plus, our email, iafofans@gmail.com. You can use all these to send questions, suggestions, and even apply to be a guest.
Oh, he missed the profession.
I know.
And if you didn't catch all of that, it'll be in the show notes.
Next episode will be the start of the sibling duology starring my sisters Kennedy and Carrington. The first episode will be discussing Avid Elementary. I hope you're ready.
Until then, we'll say,
Go live that Shoujo lifestyle. See ya!
or hear ya.
Or type ya.
Oh, so now you're the one typing?
Okay, look, wait, it sounds better coming from me, so you don't need to do all that. Wait, you don't need to talk about it.
Yes, I
Yep.
do.
No,
Yes,
yeah.
I do.
Soon.
Also, leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It helps us get more listeners.
Done, and done.
Who knew that with the power of magic, editing would be so easy? I should have thought this idea years ago.
I did.
Gasp! Ava, that sounded a bit delicious.
Who's laughing?
Don't worry about her. She's just jealous that Lady Lorna is amazing in ways that none of us will ever be. It's only natural to feel that way in a goddess's presence.
I am not.
Yeah, Don. What's with the tearing down all of a sudden?
I'm not tearing down. It's not my fault that Lady Lorna is perfect in every way. Not everyone will understand. She's amazing.
Perfect in every way. What about us, Don? Aren't your friends just as special?
What about you, Ava?
It seems that some things never change even after 20 years. Goodbye.
You've got some nerve, you little AI twerp. And after all we've done for you, you can at least have pronounced Ava's name correctly. What type of useless boyfriend are you?
Hey, that's mean.
Oh, you haven't even begun to experience mean yet. Sparkle, sparkle, intense violent music attack. Prepare to receive a magical weapon.
Thanks again to Colleen's Manga Rex and her Discord community, the Shoujo Corner, for all the recommendations featured in this podcast episode. A link to her YouTube channel is available in the show notes.